the dedication to touring is an extremely underrated part of why people see a band blow up or whatever. Is it really that they're blowing up, or that they have found like a nugget within their zeitgeist, but also are working nonstop, and their entire life revolves around playing shows, promoting, doing whatever they can to like put their band in front of people. Like, I think that's a difference between that kind of generation and my generation. Was like, it's okay for those guys to self-promote. You know what I mean? And they're so good at it. But for people that of my generation growing up, it was just like you got clowned on if you tried to like push your own art on people. You know what I mean? Like, it was a weird thing. Like,
Hey, how's it going? You are here for Heavy Art Talk. As usual, it's your host, Lee. Today, I have Anthony Lucero joining me today. He is the vocalist and lyricist of Cult Leader, but he's also a really talented visual artist, doing a lot of like pen and ink type illustrations. He has a children's book actually coming out via Deathwish next month. It's called The Cosmic Dread. But yeah, very stoked to talk with him. He's a mutual friend with Brian Montori. Thank you, Brian, if you're watching. And yeah, Anthony, how's it going, dude?
He's a wild man, straight up.
So you guys are both in LA then, right?
Yeah. Yep.
How long have you known each other then?
I don't know. Honestly, it seems like around the time I moved here seriously. So it's probably, I mean, time is weird after COVID, but I think it's like 7 years maybe that we've at least known each other. I think we've been pals for a couple of years. We've been good.
Very cool. Well, just kind of starting out, I'm always curious, especially with when I'm talking to musicians, like what have you been listening to lately? I imagine there's some heavier stuff, but a lot of times I'm pleasantly surprised with like not heavy stuff at all. Yeah,
I mean it goes back and forth. Like it's a mood thing. It's like whenever the mood hits, and you got to listen to whatever you got to listen to. But I mean, like straight up, the heavy shit has been probably just going back to like the Barnes era Cannibal Corpse stuff.
Nice.
Like it's so much more pissed. Like especially the first one. Like the first, like Eaten Back to Life is so fucking heavy and angry sounding. Like it's their only record that's actually angry sounding. Like the rest are cool and like heavy as shit. Like they're my favorite death metal band by far.
Oh, really? Okay.
But there's just something about that one that is actually like legitimately pissed. I don't know. It's good. But like it bounces around a lot, man. Like I put on. So have you ever heard of Jiro Inigake and his Soul Media? It's a Japanese jazz funk from like the 70s.
Oh, nice.
It's fucking so good, and it's just like if you looked up cool in the dictionary, it would be that, just like everybody's got sunglasses on. It's just super badass. But it's so good and it's super chill. I'm finding getting like a lot more into jazz. Like just not like I don't like free jazz. It's just like grind for normal people.
Pretty much, yeah.
But like
I've never heard it that way, but that makes a lot of sense.
It really is, man. You just like it's just absolute noise, and for some reason, just like squares, just love it. I don't know, but yeah, I don't know. Just
so you don't jam Sun Ra very often?
No, not really my thing. I'm like Agartha by Miles Davis. Love that record too. Aaron Turner from ISIS actually turned me onto that one pretty recently.
Nice.
I was lucky enough to get tattooed by him a couple months ago, and he was just like, "Hey, can I put this on?" And it was fucking awesome.
Oh, sick.
But yeah, man, I don't know. I like actually kind of getting into vaporwave and like listen to a lot of how do you say it? Purient.
Oh yeah.
Mirrors of Psychic Warfare, like 9 Inch Nails is pretty much every day. But like, I don't know, lots of shit, man.
Very cool. Yeah, you bounce around a lot. Same here.
Yeah.
In terms of Cannibal Corpse, Yeah, I mean, Eating Back to Life, it's got a little bit of that thrash still in it. And then they kind of like really moved on from that. But do you like the Fisher era stuff, or you pretty much always go to Barnes?
No, I mean, I think the majority of what I listen to is Corpse Grinder era shit.
Okay.
Like, I love like kind of their later stuff too. Like, Kill is such a good record. It's so
Totally.
heavy. But yeah, I mean, I love Corpse Grinder. He's a big, giant, sweet man.
Yeah. It's hard not to love him.
Yeah.
Well, cool, dude. In terms of Cult Leader, you guys released a track earlier this year. It's Learn to Love It. Do you guys have a few more tracks like already lined up? Like, what's kind of the rough plan there? At least what you're able to share.
There's one more that's just kind of sitting in the wings. We've been wanting to put out. I don't know. I mean, we recorded it as part of the same session. So when we did the split with End, we recorded 3 too many songs. So we've just been trying to like figure out how to like navigate that and what to do with those songs. And this last one is one of the like the slow, clean singing ones.
Oh, okay.
And in my opinion, it's like my favorite song that we've ever written. And we've just been sitting on it for years now. We were going to do it as a split with like an indie band, which I was going to get, I think could be pretty cool. But that's also just like, I have no fucking idea what's going on with it or what. But it's there. I would love to do something with it. But like each passing day is just kind of like, well, should we put it out? Should we re-record it? Should we wait? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, a little bit in limbo.
Yeah.
Do all the members live in California, or do some people still live in Salt Lake?
No, I'm the only one that lives here. Everyone else is in Utah.
Okay. What is like kind of living in Salt Lake and Utah like from your perspective? Like, is that pretty much where you grew up then?
Yeah, born and raised. I mean, I love it. Like, I love Salt Lake. It's super underrated, and people just clown on it because of all the Mormon stuff and all that. But like, it's actually a fucking really good, really great city. Lots, it's legendary hardcore scene. The music is still really good, but it's a strange place. It's very.
It's like pretty geographically too, right? I mean, there's like mountains around,
Yeah. You go in any direction, like you head up north and you're basically in like just deep, beautiful rainforest. Or you could head south, you're in the desert. You can basically any climate that you want is just kind of a couple hours away in whatever direction.
That's really neat. Yeah. We don't have the luxury of that in Atlanta. You can get to the beach pretty quick, and mountains. I guess we don't have it that bad, but definitely no deserts anywhere nearby.
Yeah, I love the desert, man. It's like I think that's my favorite. I don't know. My favorite place geographically is a desert.
I feel like that's do you watch The Office at all? Like, did you watch that? Yeah, I don't want to go on a giant tangent, but the time when Will Ferrell becomes the boss, and then Daryl comes in and he tells him the desert's his favorite ecosystem, whatever. He's like, "Oh, why did I say that?"
Yeah, I mean, I'll go with that. It's my favorite ecosystem. Sure.
We're having that moment now, huh?
Yeah.
What about visual art? Just kind of like growing up, like you always a kid who drew, or how did that kind of come to you?
Yeah, I was always a kid that drew. Like, my mom was a teacher at the school that I went to, and so that basically meant that I was with her at all times. So like before school, after school, all that. Like I just kind of never left. And same with there was another kid too, and one of the things that we would do that I remember doing was like, remember the old school printers that had like the holes on the side?
Yeah.
Through, and you'd like tear off that. We had those, and what we would do, we would do shit like pull out 15 feet of that stuff, and then just see like who could draw the longest shark. Just kind of shit like that. But like I always drew, and I always enjoyed drawing. And then at one point, I was kind of serious about it and showed someone who was just like an artist and he just kind of went like, yeah, it's all right. So, and it kind of it hit and it stuck with me. So I was like, fuck. And so I stopped drawing for a long time. Like, not because like it was just kind of, I was hoping that it was like, ooh, this is good, but it, it kind of broke me a little bit. So it's just
was an older person, like somebody who was like established in art, and then you were pretty young.
No, he was actually like closer to my age, but like established artist. Like he made it. He was at that time like he was trying to get like tenure as a professor in art and stuff like that. So like he was, someone that I really respected as an artist. And then he kind of just shot me down a little bit. I just so I focused on music instead. For much more. And then in the Gaza days, like we just kind of found ourselves needing artwork. And so I was like, well, I like to draw. And so I picked it back up, and it just kind of turned in it snowballed from there. Just more and more designs for that band, and other people would ask for designs. It just kind of turned into a whole big thing.
Yeah, totally. I could see that. Man, I can relate though with a lot of people kind of talked about that experience of like somebody that they looked up to art wise, and then you present your work, and then what you really need to hear is like some kind of encouragement, right? Mm-hmm. You don't need to be told necessarily you're the best in the world, but I don't know. I wonder sometimes if people are aware of the impact they have when they say things like that, because I bet the person didn't really mean any malice.
No, he didn't. He didn't. Yeah. He didn't even remember, because he's still to this day. He's like one of my very, very close friends. Like, I love him. Yeah. And one of the last times I saw him, I told him about it, and he's just like, "Oh, really, dude?"
Like, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, and he's just like, I didn't even mean anything by it. And he's like, I try not to. I'm not going to blame him or anything. It's just kind of like I was at some sort of crossroads, and I needed a validation, and didn't get it, and so it was my own choice to be like, all right, fine, fuck it, I'm not gonna.
Yeah, it's a good perspective too. Yeah. I guess it doesn't matter of age, but a lot of times it would be like somebody who's like younger. If they're looking for any art advice, it's kind of nice to remind yourself that lead with praise if necessary, or at least encouragement. It's like I'm sure you're in that position every once in a while. People maybe even want to be like, hey, I want to get into vocals or be in a band. I don't know. It's kind of important to like not, if you're having like a bad day, like don't take it out on somebody. Which is it's hard,
It's super hard. Yeah, you try to give them like the compliment sandwich or whatever. So it's like start off with saying something nice, and then the critique in the middle, and then something nice at the end. Just kind of like,
yeah.
Try not to like not tear anyone down, but just kind of like be constructive in whatever you're doing, and not try to tear anybody down.
When you were growing up, visual art wise, do you recall like some of the early memories of like just getting blown away or inspired by some kind of work? I mean, it could be something that's in pop culture, like entertainment. A lot of us were first really inspired by illustrators before fine artists. I guess any memories of those kind of experiences?
Yeah. I mean, it's still illustrators over fine artists for me.
Yeah.
But like, everything starts with Ninja Turtles, of course.
Nice.
You know what I mean? Like, it goes there. And then I was like, once I discovered that, then I just spent like 3 years drawing nothing but Ninja Turtles and being totally in love with that. But the comics are still really important to me. And so, but you discover Jim Lee, and then you want to be Jim Lee, still kind of want to be Jim Lee.
Yeah.
And then, I love like the looseness or the messiness of Todd McFarlane stuff.
Totally.
James O'Barr, like Tim Vigil. Like, I fucking love Tim Vigil's work.
He's producing some really cool stuff nowadays too, man. Like, I follow his Instagram, and like everything's by hand. He's got really nice watercolor techniques too. Yeah. Just cool to see, man.
Yeah. I just got his like the entire.
Ooh, those are hard to come by now. Yeah.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
Those are expensive as shit now.
Yeah. I was signed up for his Patreon and everything. So I had like, when he saw that he was going to do it, like I signed on from the beginning. So yeah, I've got it right over there. It's badass.
It's hardcover, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Dude, I was way too late on that. I was interested in getting. I have the first few Faust issues. Cool. It's not necessarily my favorite, but I definitely like the art style, and he's a great drafts person.
Yeah, I mean it's gnarly. Like I enjoy like when art goes too far. So,
Yeah.
and that shit definitely goes too far. And then he complains about never making it mainstream. But it's like, dude, you know what you do.
Yeah. Have you seen like his interview on Cartoonist Kayfabe?
Yeah,
that's a good one, man.
That was a really good one.
Are you keeping current with any comics, or are you just kind of like follow some people and just like the art style?
Not really any current stuff. Like I pick up books here and there. Trying to see if I can remember any. I think the last thing was the Last Ronin, the Ninja Turtles again.
Nice.
But like I've been getting in, like starting to read a little bit of manga. Like I'm working my way through Berserk. So like
nice.
Kentaro Miura, like dude,
Amazing.
That guy, Mount Rushmore of artists.
Totally.
And story. That shit's gnarly too.
How far are you right now?
I think I'm on so I've been reading the
the deluxe ones.
Deluxe ones. So I think I'm on 5. So it's pretty. He just got the Dragon Slayer, so like the eclipse just happened and all that stuff.
Dude, that's a pretty heavy moment, man.
Yeah.
The eclipse, like I had to like take a pause for a minute, man.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're actually right where I'm at, which is funny.
Yeah, it's good. I actually did take a break from it too. Like starting the book after that was just kind of like I don't know if I've got it in me right now. So it's just been like sitting on my nightstand, just waiting for me.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite character so far?
I mean, I love Guts. Like he's just
becomes more dynamic,
Yeah, he grows. Like I like that they should like you see emotion in him. You know what I mean? Like you actually do see that he's conflicted on top of being just like the baddest motherfucker.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's that I just enjoy I enjoy the extremes. So you know what I mean? Like I enjoy the extremity of the storytelling and the art and how far the art itself is taken and all that.
Yeah.
So like, that shit is super, super inspiring.
100%. Man. I think it's got the perfect blend of everything. Like awesome, very well thought out story. The action scenes are great. It feels like you're watching a movie when you're reading it, which is like a lot of graphic novels and stuff. They don't necessarily have that same feeling. That's hard to do.
Yeah, it's straight up cinematic. Like some of the shots are just like how did you conceive this shot for one thing? Like how it's like I don't even understand how you can conceive of some of the like just the angles on top of the compositions and just like I don't even know how you can do that. But,
and it's all one person too. That's what's crazy with like manga artists like him. Like he's if you're thinking movie terms, he's the director of photography. He's the writer. He's everything. It's nuts.
Just essentially worked himself to death.
Yeah, which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a masterpiece for sure. I'm really curious too. We're talking about books and publication stuff. Like, what led you to want to create the Cosmic Dread? Like, how did that kind of all start? So that's the children's book that's going to be released next month, just for the audience.
Yeah. Having a child, so I had a little girl. She's 2.5 now, and it was just kind of nothing that I ever actually thought that I would be inspired to do or anything like that. And it's and it's still like it's different. It's not like what you would think of as a children's book. You know what I mean? Like it has a very different feel to it. Like I grew up, my favorite book as a kid growing up was Where the Wild Things Are.
Yes.
And so but that was also a thing. Like Maurice Sandek's artwork was also awesome. Like I remember even as like the smallest kid, like admiring the pen strokes and just how much work went into all of those illustrations.
Definitely.
And he, as a storyteller, he doesn't really pander to kids. You know what I mean? Like it's not just some like silly little nonsense thing. Like it can be pretty scary. to the kids. Like I've tried reading it to my daughter, and she was a little rough for the first few times. Like she would not want me to read it, but then as soon as I would put it away, she would reach for it and then want to get back into reading it. But it's things like that where it's just kind of like it's got a serious tone in a way, but it's also and it's got like its little morality tale part to it and everything. But in the walking of miles, like when you have do you have kids?
No, I don't. I have a niece around the same age though.
Okay,
which is interesting. So I know what a 2.5-year-old's like right now.
Yeah, they're like they're pure mayhem is what they are.
Yeah.
But when she was really little, and you're just trying to get her to sleep or whatever, and you're holding her, and you're just like walking miles and miles and miles in a circle in her bedroom, just hoping that she goes to sleep, or talking to her, or telling her stories, or like singing to her, literally trying anything you possibly can. And through that, just doing all of that, it kind of just like the little story started to form. And then I like to do not challenges for myself, but like I kind of just like to set deadlines for myself, being like, okay, I have this idea. I want to give myself a week to illustrate the entire thing and write the entire thing, like get it completely as done as I possibly can, and then I can spend some time editing it and like fixing it up. But like doing stuff like that, it keeps me from over editing or getting way too hung up on tightness and wanting to be really clean. I found myself getting really frustrated with how long drawing, like some of my drawings would take, you know what I mean? Like doing like stippling and things like that, like banging away on stippling on a drawing for like 2.5 months, for one drawing. And it just like, it loses its energy. It loses its fun. It just starts to become a grind at that point.
Right.
And so like, I found myself really wanting to like loosen up as an artist and kind of just like not commit to trying to make something feel perfect for myself. Just do it. And the act of doing it, let that be the cathartic part of it, as opposed to just like I don't know. There's a meditative aspect to doing the stippling, like meditative aspect to doing the stippling and things like that. But I lost the patience for it. Like I want to make way more things than the time those take to create.
Yeah, I can definitely relate.
Yeah. And so, and the book, just doing something like that, I initially wanted it to just be a zine. I was just like, I want to make a zine. So I'll have this little story idea. So like, I'll put this together and I'll put a zine out. And then I was talking to Jacob Bannon, and I told him about it, and he was just like, well, let's make it a book. So he had just done a book for Nick Pyle. Mm-hmm. And so he's just like, he showed
the
me,
lobby you were in.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
So
I was like, hey, I know that name. It's fine. So he showed me Nick's book, and I was just like, this is sick. And he's like, well, let's do this with yours. I'm like, well, it's not exactly on the same level. You know what I mean? Like Nick's shit is just, he's awesome. But like, and my stuff is just, it doesn't feel like that, but I like how it feels. But so Jacob was just like, we'll do that. And so we've spent the last, like, it's taken a long time. Like it's almost been about a year in the making of getting it to the printer, doing proofs and all that stuff back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
So in something I wanted to give myself a week to do and then put out, and then ended up like patiently or impatiently sitting on it for a year until it can finally come out. So like, I'm really stoked, and I've had new ideas, like now that this one's out, I have like other ideas that kind of fall in the same vein of storytelling that I would like to do, like 2 or 3 more right now. And so I don't know, man, it's super cool. Like it's written with children in mind, but like it was kind of written with myself as a child in mind.
Yeah.
And but then wanting it to be something that I could give to my daughter, but at the same time, I am who I am right now, and I want it to satisfy the same aspects of myself that reading anything that I would want to, or creating anything that I would want satisfied. So like, it's definitely, it's kind of it's through the filter of a children's book, but it's written for everybody. You know what I mean? Like, it's not just a kid's book. It's a for everybody book that is told through and aimed at, I don't know, at children. It's so weird because like, I hate the idea of doing something that is just like one genre. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, in music, in art, in video making, anything like that, like, only mixing genres is real, in my opinion. And so, like, it's for kids, and it's not for kids. It's for everybody.
We'll show some of the pages here a little bit later too, but I think what I interpret with what you're saying is like the aspect that makes it somewhat like a children's book is, in some ways, it's just like the layout and the fact that, you know, it's not like there's a bunch of text on the page. Like when you open up a children's book, usually it's like 2 sentences, picture, next, right. 2 sentences, picture. But like technically you could tell a very mature story in that format. You know what I mean? Like, so it's almost like it needs another term, because I know what you mean, like universally appealing, but it's framed kind of in that way.
Right. Yeah. And it kind of, it's more or less, it was just a poem.
Right.
You know, that I was able to break up into enough images and structure as a children's book. So it does have that, you know, like each page has 1 or 2 sentences on it, and they all work their way through in a linear way.
I like forgot for a second that you're a lyricist as well. So I was like, oh, I wonder if the writing part was challenging, and maybe it was, but like, how different is it writing lyrics, just in general, maybe not even just for Cult Leader, versus writing this type of thing, or is it pretty similar?
It's pretty dissimilar, actually, in at least the way that we work. So like, I found I like to write. I like to write a lot, actually, but
yeah,
I would find myself not doing it unless I had the structure of a song to wrap it around. So I have, like, you know, I have a file on my phone that is just like fucking 30 pages of like one line that's like something cool, you know, ideas, nuggets here and there, and it's just like endless. And every time something pops in my head, I write it down or whatever. And when it's time to write lyrics or whatever, I go to that and kind of just like, well, what do I have? What fits? What sounds like? What hits the right vibe and feeling or whatever? Cadence. With the songs that we have, especially Cult Leader songs, because they're so weird and mathy in their own way, that I can't have anything pre-written. Like, so if I had like a poem written and then tried to turn it into a Cult Leader song, flat out doesn't work, because the songs are so strange in the way that they're written. So
crazy rhythms.
Yeah. And I'm by far the dumbest musician in the band. Like, these guys are all like fucking geniuses, and I'm just like a caveman.
Casey's unreal drum player, man. I've been listening this entire week to the Cult Leader. I'm just like, holy shit, this guy can play.
He's unbelievable, dude. He's so good, and he's just like he's the total package as a musician. Like, he's a fantastic piano player. He's a fantastic guitarist. He's an unbelievable drummer. He can sing like an angel. Like, he's just like,
oh really? Wow.
Yeah, dude. He's just got everything. And Mike's the same. Like, just a brilliant musician. He's an actual mathematician. You know, like an engineer. Like, the dudes are. And Sam is a brilliant musician. He's got his, like, you know. And I'm just kind of like I'm the hardcore kid. So, like, I try to, like, my way. I can't count. Like, so the way our songs are written are so strange that when I'm learning them, I basically have to learn them through muscle memory. And because like, they'll tell me what the time signature is, and I'm like, that means nothing to me. I can't figure it out. I don't know where, like, nod your head where 1 is, where like the riff starts over, and then I'll go from there. It's like, other than that, I can't figure it out. And there's been a bunch of times to where like I have something that I've done, and Casey's asking me how I'm counting it or whatever. And I'm just like, well, this is where I'm starting it over. This is my 1 or whatever. And he's like, that's not right at all. But when it comes to writing to that stuff, I have to write, you know, in a way that each line is structured specifically for that weird ass time signature that will change and be completely different literally the next time through. So I have to build those songs that way. And so writing outside of lyric writing has been pretty hard to do. Like for myself, I found like I love to do it, but like trying to write without building it onto something has always felt weird. So another part of wanting to do this children's book was just like commit to writing something that is, it has its structure because I kind of had the idea of the children's book thing, but like just commit to writing something and then commit to illustrating it and doing it as well and as quickly as you can just to get it done. But like, I love writing. I've said that like 5 times now, to the point where I have, through all of this, like it kicked off a bunch of different ideas, and I would love, like I have ideas that I would love to like write a novel someday, like that kind of stuff, like the grand, notion of I'd love to write my a memoir.
The great American novel.
Yeah, the great American novel. And so, I mean, it's cool, and the story's there. Like I spent a lot of time doing it, like inventing the story, world building, and all that. But at this point, that's what all it is, just having fun world building. But I don't know. Lyrics are cool. They're a good way to burn through some emotion.
Yeah, I can imagine. I'm not much of a lyric writer. I used to be in a band that was not metal at all, but I like wrote a couple of songs lyrically, and I mean they're interesting, but they're not. It's not like something I could perpetually do. So I imagine it's quite difficult with the children's book. Then too, Cosmic Drift. So when I say children's book, I don't mean any diminishing remarks there. No. But I imagine so much of it is like editing and like subtracting, right? Because there's only so many words on a page. Like, do you feel like so much of it was like trimming back in the process of it then?
Yeah, I think that's all writing. I kind of in its own way, I think that's all creating. Not necessarily illustration, because you can, there's its own way, like especially when it comes to metal artwork, that more is more, and it just is. It's awesome that way. Like the more you can smash onto a page, the more lines of everything, the kind of cooler it can make an illustration sometimes.
Yeah.
But with especially writing, I've heard it said that like you're not done writing until you can't take anything more away.
Yeah.
And I fully agree with that. Like it's interesting, and that part can actually be pretty fun too in its own way, of just like writing something, letting it sit for a minute, coming back to it, and then how can I rephrase this and make it tighter. And it's got to the point sometimes where, well, it's not even more, it's more than sometimes, it's like most times in lyric writing and songs, that like I've kind of said all that I want to say in a song, like, and halfway through the song when I'm writing. So it's kind of like I'll find myself at like the half point of the song and being like, well, I said fucking everything I want to say. So now what do I do? And so then I have to like kind of build it on top of all that stuff, and then go through again and like, how can I take away everything that I just put down to tighten it up and make especially with the way I like to do it, is like I like to do it like, I don't really like to break sentences in the middle of a bar, or like if it's 2 bars and they change, I don't want to have my one line that goes through both. I like to have like one line per its own, like, so like they kind of stand alone on their own things, which it's hindering sometimes. But in that way, it's just kind of like, for each line, how much editing and tightening can I do for each one to give it like maximum impact, and give it a way that like I myself can interpret it as many different ways as I want for myself as I'm writing it, which is cool, because then once it's out in the world, then it's a however anyone who is reading it can also interpret it. Whatever it means to them, that's what it means. And then if they ask me what it means, sometimes I'll give an answer, but a lot of the times it's kind of like, dude, it means 5 different things to me too. So
Yeah.
I enjoy doing that, but it's all editing, all of it.
Totally. So when it comes to vocals, then in Gaza, you were bass player. Did you do backing vocals then, or okay? So you've already been doing vocals then at that time. So then, I guess like vocally, when did you start doing that? Like, I mean, and almost anyone who does any kind of harsh vocals, like they like fry their vocals. They don't know what they're doing at first. Like, what was that kind of experience like finding your way there?
Well, I started doing vocals basically in high school. Like when you start your first band or whatever, it was just I played guitar and sang, and then whoever we could get in to do whatever other instrument to try to pretend we were a band or whatever. And we played shows. We put out one EP that actually through those times we did two separate bands, but like we both, we put out albums and doing everything. I was a singer in the first one, singer guitar player the first one, second one just guitar player. But I remembered at that time, like I enjoyed doing it when I was younger, and then through the Gaza days of doing backup and all that stuff, it was like I enjoyed doing it. Especially enjoyed the studio time, like recording vocals. And then when it came time for Cult Leader, like we just found ourselves needing a vocalist, and like through all the discussions, I definitely wasn't first choice, and it was like we were discussing a lot of like who we would want in, who would want to, like if we should ask, like audition people or how it would be, because the plan was, and I didn't want to play bass. Like I've never actually been a bass player or wanted to play bass. I wanted
this is your escape.
Yeah, it was my escape. I wanted to be in the band, and I wanted to be in a band that was doing something. And they needed a bass player, so just like, I'm in. Let's do it.
Yeah.
So as soon as that, the opportunity came to like put the bass down and do something else, I jumped for it in the way that like I thought maybe I would start playing guitar, but like my style and Mike's style of playing are vastly, vastly different. And he is already, he doesn't need help really.
It's crazy. Like, you're a one guitar band.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, like I write a lot. The way we like to look at it is, so the last Gaza record in its way is the first Cult Leader record, because the vocalist was essentially gone, and I wrote on guitar along with Mike and Casey, and we worked so hard on that record. Like we would get together at 10 o'clock at night 3 times a week for months and months, just the 3 of us writing. And so when it came to like who was the core of writing, it was the end of Gaza, was at least as far as writing guitar and drums and all that. It was an interesting transition. So like when the time came to start Cult Leader, it was essentially just like, I can continue here and we can continue writing. And I did write quite a bit, or contribute quite a bit when it came to writing guitar. But then like once everything filters through Mike, it 100% becomes him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like I can't count the way that those guys can count, like I said, but I can, if I can loop a part while writing it, then I know that it at least can be something. I can't tell you what time signature it's in or anything like that, but like and I guess in that way it frees me up to write some really weird stuff that fits our band and our style. But then once it translates through Mike, it becomes, it's through his hands. It is what it is. But I forgot where we were going with all this.
I mean, I think too, like every band is so different, and the dynamics of bands is so fascinating. Like, I imagine when you guys were like on tour, it's very interesting to observe other bands off stage and just see like who does what, who's the driver, who's the somewhat manager person, who's the art guy. It's like these unofficial roles that are, I think, just as important, but they're not what's on the credits. They're not bassist, vocalist. I've always found those things interesting. What about you? Like, what's your take on that?
I mean, it's 100% real, and it's there.
Yeah.
Like, every band has those roles that everybody just kind of naturally falls into.
Yeah.
And Mike is band dad for
band
real.
Dad. Yeah.
He's band dad. Like, when we need to take a flight, he's the one that makes sure that we've all got our tickets, and he books the flight a lot of the times. And he drives like a motherfucker. Like, it's hard to get him out of the driver's seat.
That's an underrated skill right there.
Yeah,
It's when he knows how to drive a van and a trailer.
Yeah.
It's not for everyone. I learned the hard way.
Yeah. I probably drive the least. I can do it, but like, I just, it is what it is. I drive the least.
Yeah.
But he's a machine when it comes to that. And he, like I said earlier, he's an engineer, and he, like, through high school, and I mean through most of his life, he's worked on cars, like funny cars, like hot rods and shit like that, like drag racing. So he's also a brilliant mechanic. Like, Mike is just that dude who's just like, there's literally nothing he can't do that he can do better than you. It's inspiring and frustrating at the same time. So he can just literally do anything, and but when it comes to just like the making sure that we're on time and how we get there and do all that stuff, it's Mike. Casey for a long time was our booking agent. Like, he can book a DIY tour like nobody's business. You know what I mean? And then I was the art guy. Yeah. And Sam smoked weed.
There's always got to be that person too.
No, but I'm just kidding. Like, he's an entirely necessary, and he contributes everything. It's him just being silly. But when it comes to when it comes to what we do, everybody just kind of has their thing, and every band has their just brutal walls of conflict, and it's like being married to 4 people at once.
Oh yeah. I know what you mean. When it came to you, then, and I don't know if you like the term or not, but at the end of the day, like, when you just got the mic and there's no instrument, I mean, you're pretty much the front man, right? So, like, was that natural for you? Like, do you like that role? Kind of, how do you take it?
It was 50-50. So, going back to how I ended up being the singer, was eventually I just volunteered and said, like, hey, what about me? And they were like, I don't know, dude. And so there was a trial time, where like I was trying it out, and they were all like brutally evaluating what they thought. Like, the way we speak to each other when we're writing and doing those things is, there's not a lot of we all love each other, but there's just, there's no sugarcoating when it comes to talking to each other about the art that we're making together. Like, it's just, there's no bullshit involved. And so when I eventually did it enough, and they didn't just tell me that it sucked and I should stop, and I was like, okay, well, I guess this is what we're doing, and this is how it is. And the first tour that we did, I literally lost my voice. It was gone. And I had we were no days off, and it was just like 4 weeks. It was brutal, and it took a long time to recover after that. And it's kind of, and then I started like diving into just like learning like deep technique of just like, how do I do this without hurting myself? And I still do. Like, I hurt myself all the time still, but trying to like, figure that shit out. But one of the reasons that I volunteered, on top of not wanting to play bass, was just like, like I said, I think when it comes to these like weird challenges for myself of like setting a deadline and doing things, I'm also like an intensely like very intensely introverted person, and I can go like I've noticed in my life that I've gone like literal days, like days and days and days without speaking to anybody, like to myself out loud, anything, and it would just like strike me like oh, I haven't said a fucking word in like 3 days, and and I would. It was very bad. Like like people would end up having to check on me and things like that. Um, so when it came to the opportunity to do that, it was a thing like, well, do I actually want to put myself out there as the target in a lot of ways? I don't know, like the center of a lot
Right.
of
It's hard.
yeah. And in that way, it was just like, well, fuck it. Like I want to find a way to kind of shake off or break loose from at least one part of this like intense introversion, and doing vocals was very much a way into that. And so, but I still found like that I didn't want to be seen a lot of the time. So like I would wear a hood with my hood up and just like basically cover myself in as much clothing as possible while we played. And like if it wouldn't have been some silly shit to wear a mask, there was a like I would have wore a mask just to have like some sort of barrier between me and everybody else. But as it's grown and as we've gotten further and further, and over time, that like I've found myself much more comfortable standing like face to face with everybody.
Yeah.
And it for myself that means a lot. Like it's a big thing. Like stage fright was its own thing. Like when I was a kid, when we were playing band, like when we were really young and playing, like I would find myself in between songs. Like I literally couldn't tell you my name on stage. Like I was able to play the songs, but like if it came to speaking in between songs or anything like that, it was literally there was just like a tired hamster just doing endless laps up there and nothing else happening. And so transitioning into that and getting more comfortable with that has been uh, more cathartic, or as cathartic in a way as performing the songs themselves. Like the ability to just stand face to face with a room full of other people that are looking at me waiting for me to do something and, perform and like do something but do it well also, and then being able to at least in my own way feel like I'm doing it and doing it up to a certain standard.
Yeah, man. Well, that's awesome that you see that, in yourself and where you're at now with it. I can imagine it's very nerve wracking. When it comes to touring, then with that in mind, is it like kind of towards the middle end that you're like feeling really fully comfortable on stage? Like, do you basically have to go through this process of like getting confident on stage every tour? Like the first two shows are kind of tough, or like you've kind of beaten that beast for the most part?
No, it depends on how much rehearsal time we've had.
Yeah.
So and the way it's been for the last couple of years, it's been like zero rehearsal. It's been like, if the band has gotten together, it's been without me, and if they've gotten together, it's been maybe a couple times to like, work through the set and do everything else. But for the most part, it's everybody like kind of trying to drill on their own of doing it. So like I've been able to like build a little studio setup to where like I can rehearse by myself and freak out my daughter who's in there.
Yeah.
but do stuff like that. But there's for sure nothing feels good until about show 4 ever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like everybody is finding their rhythm, finding the gaps between songs. Like how are we navigating, like I hate the idea of just like going to like dead silence unless it's very purposeful.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy when we play, I enjoy letting the crowd hang. So in a way of like, I don't I don't have much to say other than what's, written lyrically, and I'm not much. I'm not into banter and like being this like trying to be a comedian in between songs and shit like that. And I saw Neurosis play a bunch of times, but like I just absolutely love that like they don't say a fucking word when they're on stage. They get up there and they play their hearts out, and in between every single song, it goes pitch black, and then the next song kicks in. They do their thing. The song ends. It goes pitch black. And in that way, it's just like, well, if they don't have to say anything, why do I have to say anything?
Yeah.
And so, in that way, I enjoy it. Like, I still, if something needs to be said, I'll say it, or I feel like saying something, I will. But for the most part, I enjoy the action of letting people hang, because everybody expects that the frontman or singer or whoever is going to have like some like witty shit to say to them in between songs or whatever. And just getting to stand there and making everybody else stand there and wait and be patient, and being patient yourself is in its own way, that's a very interesting dynamic and a fun thing that I enjoy. I enjoy that feeling, that anticipation of like, well, is someone going to say something? And then every now and then someone in the crowd just like, you suck.
Oh man, that's interesting. When you're growing up then, and there's obviously in between stuff, but like for me, just so I can kind of frame it up, I didn't grow up. I had some punk like in my like teenage years, but it was pretty much all metal. Like hardcore wasn't part of, for the most part, growing up in Metro Atlanta. Like it really wasn't that popular at the time. So for you, was it more punk and hardcore and then some metal, or kind of everything really like very well blended?
It started with I don't even know what to call it, like Christian thrash metal. So I went, like, the school that my mom was a teacher at was also a intensely fundamentalist Christian school.
Okay.
And I went to that school from first grade to 10th grade. And in elementary school, I remember becoming friends with some of the older kids who at this, like thinking back on it now, they were probably just like junior high kids, but they were metalheads, and they were like doing tape trading of Christian thrash metal, or I don't even know if it would qualify as death metal. Some of it probably would, but like they gave me tapes, and it blew my goddamn mind. Like there were 3 bands specifically. Like one that was like the most important was this band called Vengeance Rising, and a tape called Human Sacrifice. And it's so good. To this day, it's still so good. And it's just like absolutely manic and wild. And they would kind of like, it was very Christian, but they would like hide behind heavy metal artwork and themes. And so like they could kind of like trick you into thinking you were being rebellious or whatever. But, yeah, it was like Vengeance Rising. There was another band called Mortification, and
Okay, I know that one.
yeah, and like those guys got me into all that. Like they taught me how to headbang, the whole that whole thing. And then my older sister, she broke free from the Christian school cycle and got to go to public school. And she went to Kearns High, which was like one of the hubs in Salt Lake City of like straight edge and hardcore.
Mm.
And so she got into straight edge, and she kind of started introducing all that stuff to me. So like she gave me the Discord discography at one point. And so, then once you discover Minor Threat, then it's just on from there. But then at the same time, like we were all in our school, or at that time we were trying to find ways to be rebellious without getting, in too much trouble or whatever. And Solid State Records was a thing. And so falling in love with like Zao and Living Sacrifice and Embodiment. Then there were like the hardcore bands like Unashamed and shit like that, where it was just like they scratched all the itches. Like to this day, you can't fuck with Living Sacrifice or Zao. Like they're still awesome bands. And then it eventually I got invited to my first show, and you go and see like who the local bands in Salt Lake were. And I think at that show it was a band called Clear and a band called Trip Hammer. Were both playing. It was like they're playing a skating rink. And also, again, from there, it's just like the next level up. Like, well, no going back now. Like this is now what I do. Nice. And so once you start going to shows, then it becomes like you go to literally every show that ever happened ever, and
try to start part of the community, know people, that kind of stuff. Yeah,
you get to meet everybody, figure out who wants to beat you up and when and why and how you're going to get out of it and why do they, just like navigating all that crazy shit, like trying to figure out like your way in, like what can you do that will kind of like give you a little bit of a place in the scene and
DIY stuff. Like where do you find your value, right?
Yeah, looking for that. And a lot of times, just for me, it really was just like starting bands, and those early bands, there's no way that anybody would have liked them. I don't, so it was just kind of you can't hold it against anybody for not thinking any of that shit was cool, because it wasn't. But it was the way in, and then you just spend the next 30 years of like kind of just being ingrained and building.
It ruined your life.
Building and building it. Yeah, dude. It ruined my life.
That's cool though, man. I mean, I imagine some people found straight edge in Atlanta, Georgia. Like there is some of it, and I'm probably just ignorant to it, but there was the Christian metalcore stuff though, because I'm a bit younger, I think. But like, and I wasn't really into it, but like we would have core type shows at like churches and stuff that like, and they'd only have like 5 shows, and the church would be like, we're not doing that anymore because it'd be too much damage. But those are some of like the most violent, crazy shows, but just like these like churches I wasn't even familiar with, but that was an era, but it wasn't hardcore. It was definitely metalcore and like very early deathcore for me, but I have some pretty good memories of like high school and that era. And like the Chariot, do you know that band? They were from Atlanta. So like I think they had some Christian ties, but that was like part of that era. And that band was the craziest out of all of them.
Yeah.
Like Chariot, you never knew what was going to happen at those shows, dude.
Yeah. Like I don't even know if they actually played their instruments. Like it never seemed like they did. Like there was some sort of churning rhythm, and just
the drummer was playing. You could give him that.
He was doing his thing, and everyone else was just like using their guitar as, I don't know what they were doing with them. Sometimes they were fucking awesome. I actually thought the Chariot was awesome. They were a great band. The first thing they did,
it's a time
where they recorded the record live, the whole record, and it's just like a feedback bomb. But that record's great. Steve is my friend. Like I love Steve, the guitar player from that band. But yeah, there was some mayhem. I think one of the ways to introduce total mayhem to people is give them anything to rebel against. Like like the straight edge kids, whatever. Give them the ability to rebel against drugs or whatever. It's gonna turn into total mayhem. The Christian kids, you give them whatever, like whatever appears to be rebellion to them, like being Christian, but also playing the devil's music or whatever it is. It's going to turn into pure mayhem. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I wonder what the next generation's going to be like in terms of that rebellion. Like because it's all fueled by kids at the end of the day. Like eventually, that's how the pattern works. I don't know, do you feel like you stay current with like music and what's going on, or do you kind of, is it kind of hard for you to do that to a certain degree?
It's both. Like I try to stay current. Like I definitely feel the elder statesman, vibes of these
Yeah.
days. Like
Yeah.
just shit that I don't understand, or like, why do you guys think this is cool, or like, what's going on, or what is this? What is it that makes this cool that I just don't understand?
Yeah.
Like, I definitely try to stay up with like younger bands, like at least to see what they're doing, and if they're, like try to figure out like where I could get inspiration from. You know what I mean? Like, I have no problem looking for inspiration from younger kids or younger
Yeah.
bands or whatever. Like, I've spent the last however long like getting inspiration from all the old boys, and doing all that other stuff. Like, it's pretty tapped as to like what they're doing. So like seeing younger people doing something completely interesting or new or shit that I don't understand, then I'm like, okay, well then why don't I understand it? And some of it hits me as like definitely cool. Some of it is just like it's too much of a good thing or total nonsense. Whatever. But like I enjoy looking, see if I can find inspiration from newer bands.
Any bands stick out that you'd want to shout out?
Of the newer type?
Yeah, maybe just like you're assuming maybe they're in their 20s. You know what I mean?
Like Sangui Sugabog, however you say their name. Yeah, those boys. Like just that whole,
They're
like,
fun, man.
yeah, that whole group of kids that are all like this new old school death metal thing. It's cool. Again, it's just kind of like, but old school death metal is old school for a reason. So it's not like, entirely this whole new experience. But it's cool to see what they're doing and how they're putting their own spin on it. Like with those guys specifically, like the way that they just approach everything beyond the music itself. Like
their strategy.
Yeah, their strategy, the way they handle themselves is entirely different than
They play more hardcore shows than metal shows.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that came in like the Gate Creeper and stuff like that. Like those guys were, or like Power Trip. They're definitely more. They're metal bands, but were part of the hardcore scene, as opposed to just like metal bands who played shows sometimes as part of the metal scene. It was like, no, they're like a metal band who is a hardcore band. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's a strange thing, but they don't sound like a hardcore band. They just are a hardcore band.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of metal fans, they poke fun or maybe not even fun. Some of them are just cruel about it. But I mean, the way I see it, first of all, go to any of those shows. Frozen Soul, Sanguine Sugabog, Gate Creeper. Like their goal when they are on stage is to win over every person in the audience. Yeah. And like, look, I love metal. That's my first love. A lot of metal bands, that's not their aim. And that's like something that comes from hardcore of like bringing the room together and like singling people out in the sense of like, I'm going to make the best show for you. Like there's just a certain level of like stage presence and owning it and trying to outdo the other bands on the bill in a hopefully pleasant way. But like that's like something that I see more in hardcore. And like I think it's a good thing to inject into death metal, because if I'm going to a show, I want it to be an event. I don't want it just to be playing their instruments. You know what I mean? And I don't know. I think people always are gonna like rebel against what's popular, right? But for me, those bands, first of all, they're on tour all the time. They're working their ass off. And I think in most cases, they deserve the success they're getting. Yep. And they're still just success within the underground. Like, they're not huge. So, like, that's the other thing, too. It's just a giant echo chamber sometimes. People think these bands are bigger than they are. They're just people who are working their ass off. So that's my little mini rant. But, that's how I feel about it all.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the dedication to touring is an extremely underrated part of why people see a band blow up or whatever. Is it really that they're blowing up, or that they have found like a nugget within their zeitgeist, but also are working fucking nonstop, and their entire life revolves around playing shows, promoting, doing whatever they can to like put their band in front of people. Like I think that's a difference between that kind of generation and my generation. Was like, it's okay for those guys to self promote. You know what I mean? And they're so fucking good at it. But for people that of my generation growing up, it was just like you got clowned on if you tried to like push your own art on people. You know what I mean? Like it was a weird thing. Like nothing was more embarrassing than wearing your own band's t-shirt. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, why? Like I created it. It's a thing I'm extremely proud of. Like it looks this way because it's a thing that I want it to look this way. Like I'm proud of it. So like why would doing something like that, like wanting to support or promote my own thing, why do you think that's a bad thing? Other people just like, it's clowny. It's dumb shit. Like it was, you either had to be like Danzig to like wear a Danzig t-shirt. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or like these newer kids. I mean, but that's just kind of the whole thing. It's just like if you're growing up with TikTok or like whatever, it's part of the whole deal. Like content creation is it's for us, like my generation, I feel like content creation is being forced upon us.
Yeah.
But for younger generations, it's literally just part of what they do, how it works. Like it's every single day part of their life. It's how they communicate with other people.
So and like there's natural skills. I mean, at the end of the day, like if you're good at social media and your music's good, like I don't get why people would necessarily insult that per se. You know, there's also that just, I think we're both hitting on it too. It's like the rebel against, or like some people have called it like the crab mentality, but basically just bringing people down. So it's like when you see a band that's successful, all of a sudden you're like, oh no, their old shit was better. They've sold out, you know, XYZ, whatever. But I don't know, man. I guess the older I get, the more I'm just kind of like, I see the good things in things more than I try to find the bad things.
Yeah.
And I see like being good at social media as like a marketable skill.
It is
like what you're saying.
Yeah, it's a marketable skill, and it legitimately helps promote your band. You know what I mean? Like it legitimately helps make your band more relevant and bigger. And that it, you know, to my generation, it's something that we have to fight through because it doesn't feel like the right thing to do. Like I feel like content creation is just being it. Like if I want to be an artist, I have to be a content creator. That you know, if you want to reach a certain level as an artist, you have to be a content creator. And part of where I'm at now is like trying to be okay with that and figuring out like, okay, so if doing this makes me uncomfortable and I leaned into it and it, you know, it broke through into this new thing, then, you know, then same mentality with this. It was like, okay, this content creation definitely makes me uncomfortable. So, but it's the only way to like let people know that I'm actually making things or doing things, because like everything is so oversaturated. Nobody gives a fuck unless you tell them. so
yeah,
I
get you.
Yeah, so I can see it in that way, and I respect it. You know, I mean, there's definitely like it reaches a point where you don't respect it. It's just gross and weird. Like, knock it off.
Totally.
But you know, if you can handle yourself well, you can create a thing and be able to tell people about that thing in a way that is entertaining and works for you, then good for you.
Yeah, speaking of like visual art and like promoting and stuff, I mean, it's definitely tougher than it was a few years ago, I think. I think the thing for me is like I dabbled some with like filming me like drawing or painting or whatever, and like some people do it so well, but like I kind of hate it, and I don't think I'm going to do it. Like I tried it, and it's not like I have any like secrets. People could watch me draw or paint or whatever. It's just like I feel like I make my worst lines when the camera's watching me. You know what I mean? So I guess like this, just talking with people actually is more natural to me than like making a whole like video around like always interesting angles of me drawing, because like that, I hate doing that. And like, sometimes I feel like if I complain about it, it just sounds so stupid, but I genuinely don't enjoy doing that. I like just showing work in progress picture and then final, and maybe I'll pay a price for it, but I don't know. It's kind of interesting, like the different avenues people can take with like the video part of visual art.
Yeah, with the video part, if it's YouTube or something like that, like I'm much more apt to enjoy watching someone draw on YouTube in the way that is like, again, like if it's an illustrator or a comic book illustrator or whoever, specifically inkers, like I'm much more, I enjoy inkers and watching people ink than, drawing or doing page layout and things like that. I like watching inkers, and it's fun to just like, no music, no commentary or anything, but you just find a video that's just 2 hours long of someone either inking a page by brush or pen or whatever. But it is what it is. There's one camera angle, and you just watch them work through the whole piece. That kind of stuff, like, I love. I don't know who else would love that kind of thing, but like,
I mean, I watch stuff like that, but usually they're talking a little bit. Like I watched David Finch live streams and
Finch's
stuff.
channel is awesome. Like, definitely, like, I enjoy the ones where they talk and do that kind of, but I can also just like, if there's no speaking, then it's a fun way to just like put it on as like visual inspiration and ambiance or whatever, and you can do your own thing, listen to music, and just watch someone else do their thing. It's beautiful and fun. In that way, it's cool. Like, I've been trying to fuck with ideas of like how to do all that stuff too. Instagram is weird, and it's hard to, I'm not into the idea of like spending half my day every single day creating reels for one drawing.
Exactly. That's what I'm getting at. Yeah.
And then and then you show it to someone, and it lasts for a day, and then it's gone, and nobody gives a fuck about it afterwards. And you just spend all that time for this, not only on the drawing, but also on the making the video and all that stuff. And it's just kind of like, it's so much work extra for what exactly? I don't know. But like, I love YouTube. It's interesting. It's cool. Like, everything I've ever learned as an adult that is important, I've actually learned from YouTube.
Yeah, I'm with you.
And in that way, like, I've toyed around with the idea of like starting a channel and doing all that, but I have no fucking idea what I would do with it. But I would like it.
It's fun, man. Especially when you just like set your expectations to zero. Like every time I release a video, including this one, I set the expectations that no one's gonna watch it. And then I get pleasantly surprised. Like, when you set your expectations at zero, you're just always kind of like pleasantly surprised. And then, I just genuinely enjoy learning from people and talking to people and hearing their perspectives. So it's kind of a win-win for me.
Yeah. And that's saying, like, you can literally learn anything on YouTube. And I do like the idea of like, you can just let something, you put it there and it grows, as opposed to like with other social medias, is like you put all that work into it, and then you get like people pay attention for a half a day, or you get someone double taps it, and then that's it. What is this? Why are we all doing this? But I want to be able, again, trying to break through whatever that is, of just being all right with telling people that, hey, this is a thing that I made. I would be really cool if you checked it out, and if you don't like it, that's all right. But at least, here it is in a way that.
But archives well too. That's the thing with YouTube. Instagram doesn't archive at all.
Right. Exactly.
Looking at my questions a little bit, I think I was kind of curious. Like, when it comes to visual art, we were talking earlier about right now, and with Cosmic Dread, you wanted to like keep the energy of your drawings, and like not have to worry about stipple and so much like of a technical thing. You want to get the emotion through. Maybe this leads into it, or maybe it doesn't, but like, do you have any like kind of like visual art, quote unquote, hot takes? Like, just things that like you kind of value in art that, they could be somewhat common, but maybe just something that's just a little bit against some other piece of advice. Because you know how it is. Art advice is, you could get advice for almost anything.
Yeah, advice for almost anything, and contradictory advice at every single turn. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you literally, someone, you can watch a 2-hour video of someone giving you advice that sounds and feels really good, and then the next thing is someone saying the exact opposite, and it hits the same notes. So you're just kind of like, fuck, man, I don't know. Like, I don't know. I don't know if it's a hot take or anything, but just like the way I feel about art is that like the more, I don't know if aggressive is the right word, but the more transgressive or aggressive or confrontational the art is, the better. In a way that, like, I saw a quote that said, "Safe art is more dangerous than like confrontational art." It wasn't exactly that quote, but like that's just kind of the gist of it. And in that way, it's being like, okay, so yeah, so you surround yourself with nothing but safety, and that's nice. And people have trigger warnings on things or whatever, let you know that there's something here that might set you off. Like, that kind of stuff is fine. But at the same time, I don't feel like that you don't grow from any of that. Like, what makes you grow is being confronted with things that make you intensely uncomfortable or trigger deep introspection or thought. A lot of times, like, it could be just like, no, man, just you see something and it makes you feel bad and you wish you didn't see it. And it kind of like, you see something sometimes that is so bad that it kind of fundamentally, like, well, I'm not the same person anymore. Like, good, like, and in that way, I feel like ultimately that's a good thing. I'm not saying like everybody should be watching like beheading videos and like all this other like terrible things, but it's kind of like, in the long run, a world where you have to like deeply come face to face with things that make you uncomfortable and art that makes you uncomfortable, or challenges literally every aspect of what you think you believe, is the only way to grow as a person. And there's a lot of hiding behind safety, which again that's a good thing. Like, we should do our best to like not have to like feel like we're going to every time we open our phone, we're just going to be confronted with the worst thing we can possibly imagine, which is what I feel like opening Twitter is. You know what I mean? Like, you have to like really be ready. Like, if you're going to look on Twitter or whatever, be on there, you have to just like flat out like, all right, what am I going to
prepare for it?
Yeah. Like, I think like Twitter is the equivalent of social media hell. And to be involved, or I'm not involved, I don't tweet or anything, but like, like, I will look on there and then just like, there's just shit that's just, god damn, man. Like, why are we treating each other this way? Like, but at the same time, it's just like, I know what I'm probably going to get into, or what it's going to be like if I choose to go down that path. And I am okay with that. And sometimes, but it's also just like, you can't hide. And a lot of times I feel like just being part of the aggressive music scene, the aggressive art scene, all those things, like, part of what makes what we do as good and as beautiful as it is also how confrontational it is, because conflict brings growth. Like, you don't, if you like you build calluses through work, you know what I mean? Like, you have soft hands that can be hurt easily, and the more you hurt your hands, the more you can withstand. And so it's, again, it feels like I'm just like saying like, stop, don't be a snowflake or whatever the fuck. That's not it. It's literally just like, there's something about making yourself uncomfortable, being willing to put yourself in difficult situations, looking, reading, consuming, making things that make you as the creator uncomfortable, or reading something that you know is going to make you uncomfortable, or be willing to being open to the chance that whatever you're about to engage in is going to fuck you up, I guess, in some ways, is good for art. So I don't know. I don't know if that's a hot take or not, but
well, it's a different mentality than some people, right? Like, I don't know. I'm the type of visual artist that oftentimes will get way more interested in technique, tools, fundamentals, things like that over what is the meaning of this image or what is the emotion of this image. Now, emotion and storytelling in comics, I'm very sensitive to that.
Yeah.
But just one like single image, sometimes that's not. I should interpret art more in that way. You know what I mean? And like I'm trying to get more focused on meaning and get more interested in that. Like I'm not blind to it, but I nerd out about the technical stuff. You know, that's just kind of where my mind naturally goes. Like, how did they execute that? Ooh, the color harmony here. And like, I don't know. I think both can exist, right? But my natural inclination is to dissect like the logical parts of the image, you know?
Yeah, I think we're opposite in that way. Like, I mean, I understand enjoying and wanting to be knowledgeable, and I mean, it's the only way. You can only make art if you are learning, you know, like what tool does what or whatever. I mean, sometimes that's like taking a tool that you don't know what it does and seeing what happens with it.
Yeah, experimenting.
Yeah, but in that way, like I'm only looking for an emotional response most of the time when it comes to like any art. A lot of times it's looking at something and being like the emotional response is like, I am not capable of that. And I wish I was, you know what I mean? Like you can see a drawing that someone makes, and you're just like, holy fuck, that's awesome. And I can't do that. And like, I know that even if I had all the same tools and like training and everything, my work is not going to come out like that. But there's other things like, so the artist that came to mind when you were talking was Mark Rothko. So he, at first, like, so when I first met my wife and we were dating, we would, and I was coming down to Los Angeles all the time, we would go to museums, and it's harder to do that now with the life we've got. But, you know, we went to a museum and they had a room there that was just all Mark Rothko stuff. And huge. And it was just like, your first response is like, it's a big red square. I could do that. You know what I mean? And I said that to her, and her response to me was like, yeah, but you didn't. I was like, oh, all right. I mean, like, she has a really good art background and things, but it was
sounds
just
like my wife, man. Same thing.
Yeah. And it was, but that was kind of like the what broke me through on like art that's, you would think is dumb or simple or whatever. Like, I could do that, no problem. Yeah, but you didn't, and they did, and it's here and it's impacting all these people. And so, but then there's just something about a Rothko, or like a room full of Rothkos, because in that way that he specifically wanted his pieces to be displayed in a cathedral type way, right? So like he wanted a churchish experience. So you go into a room and you're just surrounded on 4 walls of just these huge squares, and you're like, okay, whatever. But then you sit there and you stare at them, and the longer you take them in, the deeper they get. In a way, and I mean that by like, his technique was doing things like, you know, layer upon layer upon layer upon layer. So you stare at it, and the longer you stare at it, the more rich it becomes in its way. And they're so big that they kind of start to become overwhelming, because like you could look at the red, but then the longer you stare at it, you start seeing like blacks, and like it gets deeper and deeper in that way. And it starts to like really resonate. And I couldn't tell you why, but it things like that are just like, oh, whatever that is, I wish I could do that. And he's just doing it with just big squares on paper. It's that, whatever that feeling is, that's what I seek. Like, I want something They just kind of like, sometimes it's, I don't know why it makes me feel that way. Sometimes you know exactly why it makes you feel that way. And, you know, then you have to come to terms with it. But just the emotion that's what I want out of everything. Like if I can't listen to heavy music. Like if heavy music has like some sort of like jaunty vibe to it or whatever.
Not a power
like,
metal
then,
fan.
Yeah, no, like I appreciate it for the playing and the musicianship of it, but it's just like this is not what I want. Like I listen to heavy music because it's fucking heavy. Like I want it to hit me in the emotions as much as I want, you know, to be able to appreciate what they're doing physically or whatever. It's just like I want heavy. If it's doesn't have to be like death metal or anything, you know what I mean? Like Nick Cave is just as heavy to me in many cases as like whatever person would name the fucking heaviest band in the world or whatever. I'm like, yeah, but I could probably get a deeper emotional heavy response from someone that you would think is a weenie or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's what I want. I mean, yeah, I love process. I love watching people. I love learning process, things like that. But that's simply so that I can be good or feel like I'm trying to be good at my craft, or whatever. But other than that, like I want it to be just like visceral at every turn. Like however if I make something, I want it to feel visceral when I'm making it, and hopefully other people, it hits them the same way. And if I'm seeking out art, I want it the same way. Like I want something that just makes me have to deal with it. I guess that's what
Nah, man, I feel that.
Yeah.
That's why I love these conversations too, because now I'm going to be thinking about that for like the next week. You know what I mean? Kind of reflecting on that.
Yeah.
But without further ado, let's pull some of your art up. And then as we go, you know, stories behind it, trials, tribulations, whole thing.
Word.
So we got 2 album covers, Patient Man on the right. I do own a CD copy of this. I forgot to grab it. I really love that album in particular. And then this is a Lightless Walk on the left, right?
Yeah, Lightless Walk. Yeah, the Lightless. So these two are both actually some of the last stuff that I did on like physical paper. Like,
okay.
And it wasn't, and it's not, I didn't stop drawing on paper because I didn't like drawing on paper. I absolutely love it and worship the feeling of drawing on paper. But like for expedience sake, like the more, I'm not in demand, but like the more like demanding making art got for me, the more I had to look for like time saving things. So like working on Procreate just made it so like, for one, that like a lot of the time when I was making things like this, all I was able to do, because I'm never learned like I'm not compatible with computers. Like it's also a thing that's been very difficult to learn in my life. So I would do a drawing on paper and then have to find a way to get it scanned, because I didn't even have a scanner or whatever, like figure out who can scan it for me or go get it scanned or whatever. And then have my friend Jeff, who's a bad motherfucker, and I love him. He would work with me on these things. Like I would send him this drawing, and then he would like sometimes FaceTime me or whatever, and like set up the phone facing the computer, and he would help move things around, and I would help like, okay, a little more to the left, a little more to the right, or whatever. And
like the placement of the letters and the skulls and
yeah, I mean,
stuff like that.
Yeah, this stuff all here is all it's all one piece. It's all on one page. But like if we were putting a logo on a piece, or if we were like if I were going to take one of these designs and make a shirt or whatever, like he would do all that stuff with me and for me. And it took so much work. Even though I enjoyed the collaboration time with him, and he would also, he'd come up with cool ideas that I didn't have, things like that. But it was just like this extra step. Like I needed to find a way to where like not only do I need to find a way to where like I can create pieces faster and be able to edit pieces faster, or whatever. Like once the piece is done, how do I get it put on a shirt? I need to be able to figure out how to start doing that by myself and all that stuff. But these are cool, like the Patient Man one. So the actual drawing for Patient Man is this guy. So this on the page, when you see the page, it's this.
Okay.
So with all the maggots and all that stuff. So that was all pen and ink on by hand, all that stuff. There's no monkey work going on there.
Awesome.
And then we were running into like a deadline pretty heavy on this one. So, and this took so goddamn long. This is one of those things also, like this just,
yeah, I could see it.
Like Jake is like, I need it in a week and a half. And then I start doing this, and then it's just like, oh my God, I can't stop drawing until this is done. So it just, it was brutal. But then I wanted the cover to look like, the all black. So I had to draw this as a completely separate page. So I actually have a page that looks like this without this guy.
You just like laid down a bunch of ink, basically?
Yeah, just a bunch of ink, and then drew the roses and everything on, and did the border and all that on like a completely separate piece, and then sent it to Jake. And then it was like, when you make the cover, make it look like this. So like, and I don't know why I wanted that. Like, the cover itself to be really bare and plain, and you wouldn't know that all that extra work and illustration went into it until you open up the record. And so you wouldn't, if you didn't buy the record physically, you would not even really know this was there.
Is the CD copy like that too? I don't recall. I'd have to go pull it off.
Honestly, I don't remember how we did the CD. If I had the die cut, I don't know. I've got it somewhere here, but I don't know. I don't remember what it looks like. But that one was cool. The Lightless Walk thing was just essentially like trying to figure out a style. You know what I mean? Like, it kind of, a lot of
like the co-leader needed a brand, you know what I mean? Like consistent. Yeah.
Yeah. And I got to the point where like, I like our band name, I think it's fine. But like, I also got really annoyed with it really quickly. Like, not like, for one, there's whatever stupid brand is out there where people are just putting the word cult leader on their shirts, or on the shirt, and it looks ridiculous, and I hate it. And it's, like, whatever.
It's just like the plain text, right?
Yeah,
like
just plain text. Yeah, and it's just like, that's so lame. But like, but at the same time, that's the name of my band. It's like, fuck.
Yeah, that'd be like some douchebags would wear for sure.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm a co-leader. Oh yeah.
Yeah, and so I've
never connected the two. If that makes you feel any better, just let you know. Until now,
good.
Now I can't.
Yeah, now you'll you'll see nothing but those shirts everywhere you look now. It's terrible. But yeah, but so doing just like trying to brand the CL was part of that. Like, so like, if you know what's up and if you know the band or whatever, if you see the CL, you're just gonna know that it's associated with us. And it was a way of not having to just put like the word cult leader up on everything. So then I quickly, like, I liked the notion and everything, but then quickly it just became everybody just like, well, what's your favorite cult leader? I'm like, come on, man. Like, I don't want to play that game. And like, we've never put a cult leader on any bit of merch that we've ever had. Like, it just like was lame, low hanging fruit. Like, what do we just put like Charles Manson on every shirt because our name is cult leader or whatever? It was dumb, and it's not the idea behind the name anyways. Like, the name was just like, it's just like supposed to make you uncomfortable, like invoke this idea of just like this person who gets you to follow them and they inevitably fuck up your life.
Yeah, that sucks. That sucks you've had to deal with that, because I've never. Let me give you some defense first of all, so you know how I've perceived it. I always thought like, whoa, like I remember seeing A Patient Man, and it got a lot of great reviews, and I listened to it and I was like, holy shit, this is awesome. I was like, this is just like unhinged great. the way I saw it is cult leader is a sense of mystery and not literal, not giving, like, not spoon feeding everything to you. So anyone who like listens to the music and sees the imagery and then is like going way too literal about it, like that just, yeah, it would like ruin it. So that sucks, because like to me, the band has always been like, there's been an element of intrigue and mystery, like kind of like I was saying, and like even watching you like play live and stuff, there, everything you were talking about, like being on stage and being a front man, and like you're not trying to be like cult leader, you're just being like this unhinged psycho up there, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, that's really lame that you've had to deal with that, because I've never thought about it that way. What you are going for, I think I put whatever you're putting down, I get it.
I appreciate that. Yeah, cause like the ambiguity, like it is a thing. Like I much would rather that it was just an ambiguous thing. Like you can put whatever meaning behind it that you want, like however it makes you feel, that's what it means. But then like we do interviews that are literally just like the first question is like, who's your favorite cult leader? And you're just like, all right, so you don't get it, you don't care, you just see the name and think that like, you know, we're just immediately gonna list off like everybody who we think is like,
yeah,
I don't know, it's dumb. But anyway, I in like just wanting to just like do the CL, it's another part of like the like being ambiguous. Like I enjoy feeling more like a silhouette when we play. I don't need a giant spotlight on me to like, you know, dance around. Like I don't need to tell you exactly who our favorite cult leader is. I don't need to put any of these things out there. Like I want to approach things in a way that like exactly like, so I'm glad that it translated to you that way, because that's just all I want. Like I just want it to be able to like, you know.
Yeah, I've always thought about it that way. I've never been like thinking, because like there's so many bands, and like I'm not throwing shade, their brand, what they're going for is completely different, but their whole thing is more of a gimmick, and they're very like put it up front, and like that's part of it. And like to me, you guys are as far from a gimmick band as possible. But some bands, when they like own the gimmick and it's like part of the thing, and it's like a lighthearted type of thing, I get it. But yeah, I don't know. I'm beating a dead horse, but I think there's like completely different ways of approaching the art forms. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So a couple more images here. Yeah, just go ahead and talk me through them.
Yeah, like the Share My Pain, it's obviously, it's one of our song titles. I originally drew this, I don't know what it is, a death figure or reaper or whatever, as a commission for like a smaller local band a long time ago. And I think they put it out, but they you know, it was just like it was a small thing. And this drawing I've just always fucking loved and been really proud of. And so I wanted to find a way to kind of like repurpose it and like represent it in a new way. And so like stripping it down so it all that exists now is just the figure, and wanting to just present it in that way. Like, I don't know.
It's awesome, man.
Yeah, it's old too. Like this is a pretty old piece. Like, but it just stuck with me in a way where like I felt like it needed some sort of new way to present it. So being able to make it a print and put it up on the Deathwish store was just kind of like, all right. So like when I got to go through like, what am I going to do? How am I going to, what pieces could be made into something or whatever. And so, I don't know, this guy made the cut for sure. And then
I think there's like the deeper meaning, like you're talking about earlier. But even from like a technical perspective, there's some things that are really cool about it, like the tilt of the hips and like the emphasis of the pose. Like you can just feel that pose. You know what I mean? There's nothing stiff about it. Yet it's a very thin, somewhat skeletal, somewhat skinned being. So like you feel that kind of juxtaposition too. So I don't know. It's a very striking, iconic image. Very well done.
Thank you. Yeah, and the original version of it, the legs were super fucked up. Like, I don't know what I did, but like it felt super wrong. Like one of the knees was like in the wrong position, kind of stuff. So I think part of it also was just like I saw the drawing, I saw that it was not correct, and
Yeah.
so like in wanting to redraw it to like make it, make it technically a better drawing, like more accurate. Yeah, then it kind of like it was like this needs to be its own thing. This needs to become something, and that's another piece that it's not. There's nothing digital about this either.
Oh, nice.
It's a pen on paper kind of beauty thing. And then
In the
center,
middle, it's a new single, right?
yeah, it's the cover for the new single. I really love taking Polaroid photos, and Jeff, who I was talking about earlier, he gave me a camera when I got married, like a Keith Haring themed Polaroid camera. It's super cool, and the photo itself, like the photo has like Keith Haring drawings on it. It's pretty cool, like the whole thing. Anyway, I had this also was like a pretty last minute idea of putting this song out before we went on tour, and just like we wanted something to like, if we weren't putting it out in a record or anything, and it's been so long since we toured seriously, it was like we need to put something out there at least to like, have anything behind us before we go out. And so we just kind of like last minute decided to put this together. And I had done a kind of a collage type piece and sent it in to be the artwork for this, and didn't hear anything back from Jacob for like a couple days. And then when he did get back to me, he essentially just kind of hit me with, I think you can do better.
Mm.
And coming from him, it's another one of those where like you can either you can fight him and like, like let it get you in the ego and like try to push back on it or whatever. But like, it's fucking Jacob Bannon. If he tells you that you can do better on a piece of art, and that means that he thinks you can fucking do better on a piece of art.
Yeah.
And so like, oh, okay. So pure panic mode with no plan or anything. I don't know what to do. I decided to get all these like elements together, because I've made a couple music videos also with like the same.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Did you do the video for this song?
Yes. And so I made one for this song too. And like all the videos that I made were like the same principle of what I've been talking about. Was like, I don't know how to make a music video. I don't want to translate my vision through someone else. So I'm going to learn how to make a music video as quickly and as efficiently as I possibly can. So I would spend like a week learning how to use my phone, as like how well can you film from your phone, like getting the apps, learning the apps and doing all that stuff, like figuring out what kind of lighting I would need, coming up with the plot ideas and the stories. And like, so all three videos, actually the only, I'm in one of them, but other than that, it's just my wife is in everything because that's who I have to film.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm lucky enough to like, and she's also like, she was an actress and all kinds of stuff. So she's like, she lets me dress her up and do all kinds of shit. But so it all started with the video we made for Akeley, or Tu Aklis. And so I came up with that story, and I made her costume and did her makeup and came up with the story idea and did all the filming and then all the editing and all that stuff. But as a kind of a set piece for that video is an altar. Because like the idea is, the song was originally going to be called Invocation of Aklis, because that was really what the lyrics are. If you read the lyrics, it's an invocation. It's not just it's not just like a regular. For me, that's not a regular song. It's an actual invocation.
Okay.
And so, but the band didn't like the idea of calling it that, so we changed the name. But anyway, that's what that song is structured as. And so in that video, there's an actual altar that I built, and some of the same elements from that altar are in this. And so like when I'm cycling through all of my ideas of like, what do I do? What do I put this together? Like, what have I done that I really liked that I don't feel like I'm finished with yet as an idea or anything like that. So I just kind of started putting these things together as a still life, like taking some elements from that video and starting to add new things in. And then just like on my couch behind me, I said, that's what this is. I just put like a white sheet down on my couch and then started building all this, like set up a bunch of lights and trying to figure out, like, especially trying to get the right amount of light from a Polaroid. It's super difficult, and like trying to get all that stuff. But so I spent 3 days ish, like kind of rebuilding my idea of what that altar was and doing that kind of stuff and building this. And taking like 40 Polaroids and 10,000 shots of my phone, like trying to see what I could turn it into. Long story short, long story long, it just turned into this piece. So like, this isn't what the actual finalized version looks like either. Like, this is what I put together and sent to Jacob, and then Jacob used his Photoshop mastery skills to kind of add like a 8mm film feeling to it, so it feels like an older piece of film and doing all kinds of stuff. So Jake put some magic on top of this piece, but
nice.
But as this is just like the raw photograph. For myself, I'm actually like very happy with how that piece feels, and there's elements in there that I don't think I'll talk about or tell anyone, but like there's some like really deep like family stuff going on in there. You know what I mean? But yeah, it was a very fun, and I'm actually much more interested in exploring photography. I don't want to be a photographer necessarily, but like as a medium to translate through. Like I've done it a few times in the past where like taking a photo of something and then turn that into a shirt design or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like we have a shirt called that just says Cult Leader Sympathetic on it, and there's a knife in the middle, and the knife is a knife that my dad made. Just like, and I took a photo of it, and just like, I don't know, it all kinds of anything photographic so far has just tied back to my family. But anyway,
well, in some ways too, it's like we were talking about Dave McKean with the Sandman covers earlier. He creates something, and then the way to immortalize it is to take a picture. I kind of see a similar vein here where you're creating something, a story, a set, or whatever, and then you just take the picture to actually be able to publish it. Do you feel like that's pretty apt? Or
I think it is. Like there's something very, I don't know. I mean, it's an obvious thing to say, but immortalizing about a photograph. You know what I mean? Like you have that moment, you take it, whatever that thing is, it will live forever. Like obviously, I took apart the still life. It doesn't exist anymore. That kind of stuff. But like the photographs of it are real. The time and place of things are very powerful in that way. So yeah, I totally agree with that. And then the same sheet and all the elements that are in this is another part of like what my wife, like I was one night after our baby was asleep, like we had our baby monitor and everything, and I was like, all right, now come outside with me and let me put all this shit on you and go stand in the field next to our house while I run around you with a flashlight and my phone and film you, and I'll make that into the music video. And that's what it is. So like basically the elements of this, we just kind of, once I disassembled them, I gave them to her, and then we went out and we made our thing, and so that became the music video.
That's cool, man. I'm excited to see you keep exploring that stuff.
Yeah.
The thing on the right here, what was the use case for it? Was it like flyer, shirt? How'd you end up just promo graphic?
It was a shirt at some point, and then was just something that, again, like a shirt is finite. Like we make one shirt, we take it on tour or whatever, and then we sell it, and then it never gets used again. Or, then that drawing just kind of falls into obscurity. So part of the something I feel lucky about with being able to do my prints and stuff through Deathwish is like those designs that I made that like at least resonate with me, or there's something about them that I want to keep out there, keep alive, that I can make them a print, and they can kind of have a good second life that will hopefully last longer than just a shirt design or whatever. So yeah, that's what this one is. Like this one grew, like it just started out as like it was a skull sitting on the ground, and it didn't, but then it got like the feeling that it felt like it was like smugly laughing or like looking at you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
So,
that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, and so I kind of built it on, like I decided to not like throw away that version of it and like really turn it into something like drawing in the eyes and making it look like he's looking over his shoulder and shit, to like really like push that idea of just like, you know, you someone who enjoys the punishment and wants to make sure that you see that that's what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, I really like it, and I think it is enhanced with the letters there, because like I don't know, it kind of completes it for me. Like, you kind of give just a little of like what you were thinking behind it by putting the writing there, but then there's still a lot of things that you can interpret it through. But
yeah, I think
there's
you
a lot
can
of power
really,
to it, man.
yeah, I think you can really like, you can read into it quite a bit. And also this is one of the first times that I've decided to start like really fucking around with texture. And so instead of like stippling the shit out of everything, I still want a heavy texture on a lot of pieces, but I want to be able to do it faster. And so exploring ways of doing that was like this piece is the first piece I ever did actually, where like this like intensely, it's like a really light scribble.
Oh, okay.
That just I end up doing like, figuring out that I can how to build values on top of the scribble. So like that scribble gives you like some really unhinged kind of texture, but then doing it, lightly, I can build the values and really like kind of get something with some texture.
Was this on paper or Procreate?
This one is Procreate, but it's with more of a pencil type pen. So if
Gotcha.
it's not like, it's a very broken stroke. So being able to, it's something like, and but it's a very light touch, and I don't really fuck around with like changing the aspects of pens or making my own pens or anything. So like I just kind of was exploring like which one I could do something strange with. Yeah, and so this one, it gives you like a really broken line, and if you have a light touch, then the piece comes out light. So then you can just kind of build and build and build.
Very cool. Yeah, I really like that one. So on the left here, this is like the lyrics and credits, and you hand wrote everything.
Yeah, and so for everything except our first, for our 2 full lengths and for the Useless Animal EP, again like our very first EP, the Nothing for Us Here, is the only piece that we had someone else do the like majority of the artwork. I mean, I did all the drawing and everything, but like the layout and the
graphic design piece.
Yeah, the graphic design piece of it was entirely someone else's. It's this dude Bryce from Boise, who's also a great dude. But I didn't have like a vision yet for what to do or where to take the band. I think that really hit with the Useless Animal EP and was solidified with Lightless Walk. But the Useless Animal was the first time where like typing the lyrics just didn't feel right. Like I felt like, well, writing them in this like whatever manicky way also just felt really cathartic. And it felt really good. So I mean, there's only like 4 songs on that one or whatever, so it was much easier than this. So
there's a lot more labor involved.
yeah, man, this one was so fucking intense and difficult to do. Like just in like trying to figure out, because it's so messy, but it's also very planned out at the same
Oh
time.
yeah, it has to be.
I had to plan this so much and like trying to figure out like how small or how much space I needed to put in any to make this even like remotely legible to do. And so like this has just always been a piece where like I don't think anyone has ever really noticed it too much, or like it's you can't put it on a shirt or anything, but like as a piece of art and something that I feel really scratches an emotional itch. Like I feel this gets across something emotionally that I was looking for, is a piece that I would like to just like really say that's what it is.
Yeah.
So,
No, it's awesome. Like when I think like how would I tackle something like this, it just makes it even more impressive because like you're talking about, like there's like the aspect of planning. Like some songs have longer lyrics. You don't want to seem too smushed in one area, but then you have like the margins, and then obviously just the way it makes you feel when you look at it. It's like, wow, this. First of all, like they like their lyrics enough to spend the time to handwrite them, and you just feel the energy there. So it's cool. It's very cool.
Yeah, and there's no Procreate involved in this one. Like that was all.
Yeah,
that's all on paper.
Do you still have that piece of paper?
I think I do. Yeah, I got it.
Nice. Yeah, hold on to that, man. That's very cool.
Thank you.
What about this on the right?
We used this on the European tour that we just did, and it's just kind of like again like starting to like trying to figure out like how quickly and intensely can I hit a piece and let it resonate without overdoing it. You know what I mean? And so that's really all it is. Just like trying to approach a piece and hit it as hard as I can and see if it resonates in the right way and feels complete without just feeling like a bunch of caca put on a page, But also like starting to explore a little bit more of using like halftones and things like that. Try to fill in the grays and like again just texture, just looking for texture.
Yeah. I like it. It's frightening, man. That's for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so now we're at Cosmic Dread.
Yeah.
It's very cool. And you did this digitally then, Procreate?
Yep. And Procreate, and again, just kind of like how quickly can I make this and make it feel complete and not like just like it's just like a sketch or something. You know what I mean? Like trying to find that line of just being like, when does a drawing become a drawing and it's not a sketch?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think about that all the time too.
Yeah.
I think it's hard for me to create I'm either doing like a sketch just for myself that doesn't really look very good. It's like figuring things out, or I'm creating a complete piece.
Yeah.
I see some people who are so good at like creating like these sketches that exist standalone. And right now that's not necessarily me or my strengths.
Yeah. I see those where like people will say like, this is a sketch. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me, dude? That's a million times better than any finished drawing I could ever accomplish. And they're just like, oh, whatever.
Sometimes that stuff is just a giant play. Like,
yeah.
I'm not singling out any artists. It's more like just stupid like Facebook art group stuff. The people that are just like fishing for compliments, be like, they like put up a masterpiece and they're like, just feel, I don't really like this one or whatever. I see their game. I know what they're doing.
Yeah. I'm thinking more of like watching Jim Lee draw or something. And then at the end, he's just like, yeah, this is just this. I'll throw this away too. Like as soon as you're not looking, you're like dude.
That's funny. So the tagline, of lack of a better word, of A Tale of Acceptance, is that something that you originally started out with in mind, or did that kind of find its way as you were working through it?
That found its way. So like once everything was done, it was just kind of like how do I sum up the whole thing? You know, again, like it feels like editing to me. Like a lot of times, I feel like a good way to write a song or a story or anything, or tell you the. I feel like I can get the punch of the song
Mhm.
by the title and not put it in the song. You know what I mean? So like, so the song title doesn't have anything necessarily to do with the content of the lyrics, but it, in my own way, it sums up exactly what, and for myself, I'm trying to say with the lyrics. So in that idea of like, how do I condense the idea down to this one short phrase? And so that's where I got that.
Very cool. And then we have some pages from it.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, not really a whole lot to say other than just like the vibe. So like I don't think a lot of people when they think of a children's book, they think of like a very, very stark black and white, you know, like half-toned, scratchy interior drawings, you know.
Yeah.
Like part of this, I don't know why, like I had just right before um, I started working on this, I was looking through a bunch of like Raymond Pettibone books and stuff. And I was just like, I love the way that he approaches like the comic style that he does.
Hmm.
You know? So like I would openly say that was a heavy influence on the approach of what I wanted to do with the inside of this, on top of just like getting it done as quickly and aggressively as possible, but also like in what way can I make it feel like it um, yeah, is a finished piece again. Yeah. Yeah, and the same for these guys. Like just as interior pages, like I wanted, it was another interesting idea. Like, how do I translate um, love in this stark style? Because it's kind of like you don't necessarily, again, like you're not. I don't think anybody would pick up something that looks like this and expect it to be in its own way like a love story,
Hmm.
and it is, but it's not exactly like um, the kind of love that you expect. I think like I feel like it shows a love for um, mm, like a
It
child
seems
and their
more
mother.
realistic to me
Yeah,
than
yeah,
Disney or some shit.
yeah. It's not sweet. Like there's not. I feel like trying to make something feel like love exists within it, but not make it like sweet or you know just like Hollywood, or I don't know. Hollywood's a stupid word, but like you know what I mean. Like
Yeah.
just some sort of like spoon fed stuff. Like it's still like there's still things to confront in here. And so like the two hugs. Oh, just one back. Like the two hugs, like the hugging the mom, like the comfort, but then you know at the end, like letting the monster hug you is kind of like it's got its own like contrasts in this like in the little story that I don't want really I won't spoil it, but like I like the idea of like the different contrasts of you know, the one you love and whatever you let love you kind of thing.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah, and just more of the same. Like I the only reason I included this piece was I really love the idea of how gray it is, except
Yeah.
for over the eyes. Like I don't know why I did it. Like I don't have no explanation for it other than when I did it, it suddenly made the drawing make sense to me,
Oh yeah. No,
which
I
is cool.
I think like everything you've learned from comics has paid off because I feel like this is very original looking. Um, but you can learn so much from studying comics in terms of supporting text with a story through
Mm.
imagery. And I feel like you did an excellent job here, man. Like,
Yeah, thank
awesome.
you. I appreciate that.
And like
And then
the
again,
drama of the door shot, like you feel it.
yeah, yeah, and like there's another like so yeah, in a way of like I feel like showing it's a little hard to see, but just like the reflection of light in the mom's eyes, you see like it could be taken as scary because you can see her eyes like that, or you can see it as like some sort of um, I don't know, just like a reflection of love. but with it still being like, to me, this piece feels unsettling. And even though it's like there's literally nothing other than a mom saying goodnight to her kid, but it's still, but there's that idea of like your mom still left you in your room in the dark, and we were all there. We all had to deal with the dark.
Right. And you technically are alone, but they're just in the room over.
Yeah, they're there, but like you still got to get out of your bed and like hopefully nothing's under there. You got to run, like do whatever you got to do to get them back or go to them. And the idea of that, at least for me, was always really scary. So I feel like for myself, being able to communicate that with this drawing, it's pretty cool.
Were you thinking a lot about just being like 4, 5, 3, whatever age? Like, did creating this bring back a lot of memories that you hadn't thought about in a long time?
Yeah, that's really what it was. It was just like, my daughter was a lot younger when I wrote this than I was when I was in my like the space. I was in my head thinking this through, but it really was like as a kid, like how did I feel like, because like, okay, so the idea is it's the cosmic dread who lives beneath the bed, right? But the primary idea is the cosmic dread. It's like, just how do you deal with how, like no one teaches us how to deal with dread, whether it's you're holding your brand new baby in your arms, you don't want anything to happen to her. That the level of dread that causes is like immense. You know what I mean? Like she's perfectly safe, but there's just like this like overwhelming feeling inside of me at all times that is just utter dread of something happening to her, right?
Right.
So,
but there's love at the same time, and they coexist.
And that love is just like, it's like I've never felt anything like being a dad, dude. It's the best thing I could ever imagine. Like it's fucking awesome. I love being a dad, and that level of love matched with it, only that level of love I think can spark that level of dread. And so when trying to figure out how am I going to deal with this level of dread while holding her, kind of sparked off this whole thing of just being like, well, then how did I feel about this when I was a kid? How do I feel about it now? And how do I translate all of that into just like this little thing, I guess, just like this burst of creativity that I want to create. And so in that way, like I'm pretty happy with this whole thing, the way that it all came out.
I mean, I feel it, man. Like I guess when you're just talking about it, it's kind of bringing back some thoughts and memories of myself too. It would be interesting, like when it's out, like getting feedback from kids, because I feel like, I don't know, I'm not trying to judge kids here, but when I was growing up, I was a kid at times that was bullied, right? And I wonder what kids would resonate with this a lot, and what kids it maybe just it won't. You know what I mean? Like we're talking about Disney, right? Disney, it's aiming to try to get to everybody, but it's not like every kid ends up becoming a metalhead, right? Like it's just a path that some people kind of find themselves on. I wonder. I think there'll be some kids that'll really resonate with this, and then some it might not.
Yeah, for sure.
Go ahead.
But yeah, I was just gonna say I could see people just like outright, like rejecting this, and that's fine. But the kind of the idea behind it is like, no matter who you are, no matter it, you don't have to be into heavy music or heavy art or anything to have to confront dread at some point in your life. So it's more of like how are we all who helped us or didn't help us with the idea of confronting our lack of control in life. You know what I mean? Like, I don't remember ever being taught as a child, like, look, man, there's going to be a lot of shit that you can't control, and a lot of bad things are going to happen to a lot of good people that you love or whatever. You have zero control. You can do nothing to stop it. You have to accept it. And no one ever said that to me. So I guess in my own way, that is what I am saying. You know what I mean? So it's just kind of like, it's sometimes I wish that I didn't do it in such a stark way, that I really did kind of like code it more as a children's book. And so like when you picked it up, it legitimately just like looked and felt like a children's book, so I could get that message more dispersed easily.
Right.
But it's not what came through me. This is what came through, so it's just I'm rolling with it.
Definitely. So shifting gears a little bit,
Mhm.
can you tell me a little bit about this, like the wrestling affiliations and how it all kind of came to be?
Yeah, so with Malachi Black, the House of Black stuff, um, at some point I started following him on Instagram. Like I had noticed that I just got the vibe that he knew what was up. You know what I mean? Like when it came to heavy music, and like you could tell that like he was like a legit dude who came through the scene,
Hmm.
and he was doing cool shit. And I just kind of felt like also like whatever, like with the Undertaker was retiring and all that kind of stuff. It was like, so there's a gap for like the new dark character or whatever. And I was like, this guy's doing it. Whatever. It's pretty cool, you know? And so I started following him. And at some point, I don't know how or whatever, but he took notice of me and my own stuff, and then just kind of like randomly hit me up one day and then told me that he was a fan of Cult Leader,
Mm.
and asked if we would do a collaboration with his shirt company, Black Mass. And so I was just like, cool, fuck yeah, let's do it. And so like he basically just like, okay, draw a shirt and then we'll put it out to get, and we'll put a Black Mass logo on it and a Cult Leader logo on it. And we did, and it wouldn't like it's. I don't think any his fans, or like the majority of his fans, had any idea who Cult Leader is, or even to this after they bought the shirt or whatever, still don't know who Cult Leader is. But it did really well, and that was kind of that. And we, chatted back and forth here and there. But then a while later, he hit me up again, asking me to do another design for Black Mass, just like a design. And so I was into it. I did it, and then at the end of that, he was like, "Hey, do you just want to come on as a designer?" And I was like, "Yeah, fuck yeah!" so that was that. Like, so I've just been like, he just kind of like will pitch me an idea or two, or a lot of it is just like he just gives me like, go like make what you want, and if it fits the vibe, we'll make a shirt out of it. And so that's what
It's
it's
nice
been.
for consistency, you know?
Yeah, man. Like it's the first time that like I've ever had like a gig that was not music related. Like I've worked with Abominable Electronics quite a bit, and like do a lot of his designs for his pedals and stuff, and like work for other bands and stuff. But this is a whole other thing, and just kind of the same idea. Like he just being asked to draw, like, hey, just draw some heavy metal shit, and we'll pay you more than any band that you've ever made as an artist. Otherwise, you know what I mean?
Yeah, sounds about
So
right.
yeah, so in that way it's cool. Like it's actually like an interesting thing, like to see like how much illustration is appreciated outside of the music scene. Like
Oh,
it's
for
so
sure.
like inside the scene, like trying to like do it as your job. Yeah, good. Fuck that. Good luck. Like no metal band is gonna pay you any level of a living wage to do any drawing. And so kind of one of those things also like why I wanted to start drawing faster. Like
Yeah.
figure out how to do it, because I can't like spend, you know, a month making a drawing to get paid $100, you know. And so how can I go faster? But we're not, he's not making me a millionaire or anything, but like it's just actually like, hey, this is how much the outside, the metal world actually, like the real
Yeah.
world, quote unquote, kind of is willing to give you for a drawing. So in that way, that's a very cool aspect of it. And yeah, so like both of these are just commissioned pieces that I turned out really well that I like.
Yeah. They're awesome, man. And you hit on a lot of good points there too. Like I've seen a lot of artists who do some work within the music, but then and I'm not going to name any names, but then they do any kind of work with, a YouTuber or some kind of other company, and they're like, yeah, they're like the best client ever. And I'm like, okay, I see the pattern here,
Yeah.
thought these were neat too. Some of them might be related with the House of Black. I just wasn't able to fit them all on one slide, but
Yeah, all good. Yeah, all of these have actually been House of Black designs. Like
okay,
I think the skull with the dagger. I don't know if that one's come out yet, but it is a House of Black thing.
nice.
They were all kind of just more or less commissioned pieces, but also just kind of like free reign on whatever they are. Like it's just hit with the draw me cool shit. So I get to kind of like, okay, so what do I like drawing? I like drawing Grim Reapers crying. So I'll do that.
So it kind of looks like a comic page. Was it used as a shirt, or like how was that one used?
Yeah, that one ended up just being used as a shirt. Like,
Okay,
okay, so actually thinking about it, I don't think that one was designed originally as a Black Mass piece. I think that one was just like, I wanted to again test the waters of like what how can I make a page that tells a story, in one page, and in its own silly little way it does. And I liked it, and I think it was when he was asking if I had anything to use. And I was like, well, I've got this. It doesn't, it would be a strange shirt design, but he was just like, nah, it's fucking awesome, so let's use it. Like, hell yeah. And I think that one sold really well too. It was like, out of all of them, like that one, like it struck a good chord with a lot of people and with me. Like I fucking love this piece. Like, because it's the hardest part about like wanting to tell stories is coming up with an idea of stories. Like
Mhm.
my mind is blown by people who can come up with like shorts and do like a comic a day, like like however like one page or however many page comics a day. Like I don't have any idea how you come up with enough material in your brain to like tell those stories, even if they're micro stories.
Yeah,
So
I know what you mean.
yeah, so doing it with that one was pretty stoked that it actually like kind of worked.
So have you seen him? Do you call it perform live? Have you seen him wrestle live? Like, have you had the
No,
experience yet?
I haven't gotten to see him wrestle. I think he's been here like twice wrestling since we've linked up. But within that time is when we've had our daughter, and it's just literally
Yeah.
like, yeah, good fucking luck. I haven't even I've seen like 3 movies in 2 years. It's really difficult.
Yeah. Well, once again, I'm appreciative of your time, man.
Oh, for sure, man, for sure.
We're getting towards the end here.
Yeah,
More striking designs, man. Thought these were sick.
thank you. Yeah, they're both of these. Well, actually, the like Hieronymus Bosch-ish style of this one it was commissioned from Malachi. Like he wanted just like the demon that eats people. Like whatever. He's like, which paint. He was like, when we're talking about it, he's like, which painting I'm talking about. I'm like, yes, I do. And he's just like, can you make me something like that? He's like, for sure. And so I did. So like, if you look at them, if you on my Instagram or whatever closely, like he's eating punks and metalheads, which I thought was
Oh,
nice.
nice.
Yeah, so everybody that's in there, it's just whatever. But yeah, and then this one, the lamb was, I don't know if I'm allowed to say, it was for a very, very large metal band. Like it was going to be a collaboration. It was for like one of like you know, the top of the heap dudes.
Mm-hmm.
And when it was submitted, I think he called it crap or something. And
Oh,
so,
that sucks.
yeah, I mean, I'm not hurt by that at all, but it was just like, it was just one of those where like, it perfectly fits who I feel his personality is and all this stuff. So like, I'm okay. Like with harsh criticism, like beyond like my earlier stories, it's like, it's 100% fine, dude. Like, I don't care if you like it or don't like it or whatever, but like we did it and he didn't like it. And so we put it together as a Black Mass piece. So we made this a long sleeve, but it was another piece of where like, it's more involved than a lot of other pieces that I've made. Like when it comes
A lot
to
of good
detail.
detail.
Yeah. Especially I'm within the crown of thorns around the neck.
Mm-hmm.
Like the fur, everybody draws fur different ways or whatever, but like I put a lot of work into the thorns. That's actually the reason I wanted to show the piece, is just like, I like that. I like the thorns. But
Just it's got a good sense of design too. I was talking to my wife the other day. I was like, man, I don't want to be pigeonholed as the guy who just likes to draw things within circles.
Mm.
And she's like, well, everything looks good in circles, especially when you're designing t-shirts. I'm like, yeah. So I'm like, all right, I'll do one more design that has a circular theme, and then I'll change it up the next time. Because I was like, I had this composition down, and then the little demon on my shoulder was like, hey, fucker, you keep drawing things in circles. People are going to call you out on that. I'm like, whatever.
Nah, man.
So,
it's everything straight up. Everything looks better in a circle.
It does.
And
yeah.
the thing that I struggle with is like drawing anything from an angle. Like
mm-hmm.
I tend to just draw everything. It's not almost never a piece that exists on a plane. You know what I mean? Like it's like their background, foreground, all that stuff. It's almost always just like one single thing floating in space facing you. And so like I do that a lot. And if that would be a thing I would like to break away from, but at the same time, when designing things, it's like I just like the way that looks.
Yeah. Well, I think your art, beyond the emotional appeal, like you're talking about, when you do that approach, you're going for iconic image. You know what I mean? Like if you're you're going for like, this is the thing, and it has balance. It has just as much as you're an illustrator. I feel like you're also a designer. Like you're kind of equal in both mentalities. Mm-hmm. And some people like they lean one way more than the other. And I'm not trying to box you in. I'm just saying you got strengths in terms of like thinking like a designer, which is really cool.
Thank you. Yeah, and that just comes from the years of like not being able to pay an actual designer to do anything for us. So like it was up to me to figure out symmetry and asymmetry. Like how does a piece sit on this? Almost everything I make in my head is like, how is it going to look on a t-shirt? Because ultimately that's the only way that we were able to make money off art as a band. It has to be on a t-shirt.
Yeah, do you feel like you're a musician that also sells t-shirts, or like a t-shirt salesman who plays music? You know, I think I heard somebody say something like that.
I did see that recently. I
laugh at the very least.
Yeah. I will say for our band, we're a band who sells t-shirts. We're definitely not a brand, or we're not the t-shirt first. That's for sure.
Yeah.
We're music first.
Thought these were pretty sick too. Is Weeping Reaper kind of like your ink name, or what does that come into play?
Yeah, I was trying to figure out like what to do, because along with all these the prints and stuff that I'm now able to put up with Deathwish and give to Jacob, like I wanted to take it a step further and basically kind of just like start a brand and like start branding things specifically. So Weeping Reaper is from here on out going to be more or less a brand.
Okay.
Like I don't, you know what I mean? Like, I don't, it's one of those things I'm struggling with how to justify that with myself, because it's, you know, how to push it and do all those things. But like, you know, I want to make a lot of art, and I want to be able to put it out there. But I am, you know, I'm also like for the most part, making art only for my band. You know what I mean? Like, there's so much that's just there. Like I get kind of annoyed a lot of the times that like anybody, like the people who just refuse to separate any drawings that I've made from me or the band. You know what I mean? Like I draw other things, even though they're still just metal things. But it just I just want to kind of like make a wider distinction between what is cult leader associated and what is just the thing that I want to make because I want to make it.
Right.
So
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And so with Weeping Reaper, I haven't pushed anything yet. Like I haven't even posted anything about it yet, but I'm making some shirt designs. They're on my Deathwish page. So like that'll all grow more also, and I'll put more stuff about that. But yeah, but the Weeping Reaper, it's just like now going to be like basically a brand. I'll make some shirts. I'll make some whatever the fuck make out of it. Just whatever happens to be cool.
No, I see your point. And good branding, by the way, just even right here. Looks great.
Thank
you. And all right, so these are the last two here.
Yeah, so this one, it's two different versions of the same goat. So I said earlier that I work a lot with Abominable Electronics and do designs for his pedals and stuff. And so it's the same kind of idea. Like he'll just give me the dimensions of the pedal that he's working on and a generalized idea and be like, go for it. You know, this one he wanted, like it was more like a Halloween themed thing. And he wanted a pinhead or like a goat. So I was like, all right,
Nice.
fuck it. So we'll just do the Jesus wept scene, but make it a goat. And, you know, like just how like gnarly or satanic can we get it? And
How was it drawing that many chains?
it was not easy, dude. Chains are so hard. Like that was another reason, like because of growing up loving Todd McFarlane and loving Spawn, and just like and trying to draw all of Spawn's chains and all that shit was just like it was brutal. So like with these chains, and with luckily with Procreate with this, I'm totally fine with saying there's a fair bit of copy and paste going on with with some of the chains.
Well, I mean, it saves a lot of time, that's for sure.
Yeah. But yeah, and then the original version of this drawing, like the first thing he asked for was like the goat on the cross thing. Like that was the original idea. And he changed his mind like, you know, like a quarter of the way into it and went in this direction. And so we did this, and then the cross version had just been sitting like until like last week. Like I just finished it a couple days ago. Like it was just something, again, a piece where I thought was cool and needed to do. And I don't like, I'm kind of over drawing like full on out and out like satanic stuff. Like an upside down cross to me is super boring, but I like the way how it turned out. So yeah. And then, yeah, the angel, that was a commission for uniform.
Okay, yep.
And Michael asked, yeah, he just wanted a impaled angel, which was also pretty heavy.
Yeah.
So yeah, and so putting it together, like it just like making it, trying to find a way to make it feel like I don't know why, like I wanted to feel a little bit closer to like Renaissance vibes, as opposed to just like a straight up like metal, like how gory can I make it kind of thing. And so there was
more real ritualistic.
Yeah, and definitely. And so I feel like maybe it was, so like in looking at things before I'm making a drawing or whatever, like looking for inspiration or whatever, I feel like Goya was a big inspiration in that piece. Like the Goya's black period stuff is just so heavy and so scary and weird. And
I've seen that in person.
You went there?
Oh, Madrid, yeah,
dude, fucking awesome.
It was unreal, man. And it's in the Prado, but if you ever get the opportunity, it's really cool because they make, a lot, galleries, white walls, image pops right off, right? Everything is like kind of dimly lit and it's all black paint. So all the paintings, like they kind of like create this synergy, and they're all just in this, not a big room, like kind of a somewhat tight room, but they're awesome, man.
Very, very cool. Yeah, I would love to go there. I've been to the H.R. Giger Museum twice.
Yeah, dude, that's what I want
and
there, man.
That place is like heaven to me, man.
Yeah.
And just the area that it's in Gruyere, Switzerland, like you literally like, it's like the sound of music, right? Like you're traveling through that area where it's just like rolling green hills and big beautiful cows with bells on and just grass everywhere. And then you go into this beautiful little village with like a church in the middle of it. And the whole area smells like cheese because there's literally like a Gruyere cheese factory down at the bottom. And you can go buy like a brick of Gruyere, take it with you for the rest of the tour, which we did. It was awesome.
Oh, nice.
But you go through that little village and then you like walk up, and just out of nowhere, there's just like some like biomechanical shit just starts happening, and you realize that you're walking into like the area of the Giger Museum, and you can get in there and you explore everything. But at the top, there's the top floor. There's a big like the big chap xenomorph like costume is up there, and then a window, and right out of that window you look down on like the hill, big beautiful rolling hillsides. It's a cool contrast. But anyway,
that's awesome, man.
Yeah, anyway, very cool. Yeah, so that was just giving me like Goya vibes, so I wanted to see where that took me. And then like the Greyhound was a nod to Albrecht Dürer. Like he would put a greyhound in a lot of his drawings. Not a lot, you know what I mean? Like he
Yeah.
a greyhound a couple times, but
That makes sense now.
Yeah, so I don't know why I put that. It just kind of like I was going down that track of just like these masters, kind of like what can be my goofball version of a master's image.
Hey, man, learn from the best, draw from the best. It's all public domain.
Yeah. And then the middle one was also just like exploring the ideas of like biblically accurate angels, like how actually terrifying they are, and that they're all just like essentially Lovecraftian monsters. And, but that really was what, even in the Bible, like looking on one would make you go crazy. Like that's fucking wild. But this is not a biblically accurate one, but just like playing around with that idea of just like how gnarly and scary an angel actually is, as opposed to how we're all taught what they were or what should look like. It's not it at all.
Yeah, dude, it's awesome. I love seraphim, like angel things like that. I got one on my leg actually.
Nice.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite of your pieces.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'm not even put that on Instagram yet or anything. I've just been sitting on it, so I thought I'd put it out here.
Sweet. And this last one here.
Yeah, the last one. So, in the idea of messing around with comic books and wanting to like seeing if I could write a comic book or like do comic stories or whatever, I did this. Like I had an idea of this character. I've started like sketching out pages and like wanting to see if I could like commit to doing a comic. And about on the third page of sketching, I realized I am fully and completely unprepared to illustrate a comic. And the two reasons are like my two truest weaknesses as an artist are perspective and figures. And if you want to make a comic book, I guess, you need perspective and figures. So I hit that wall really hard, but I love the idea and the character. And so in talking about like writing and doing things like that, I've been toying around with the idea of if I do try to write a novel, novella, or whatever, that it would be this story. And instead of making it a comic book, my idea would be to essentially do like one or two illustrations per chapter. Tell the story, but like each chapter at the beginning would have like one really nice illustration that would kind of sum up the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean that makes a ton of sense. I could see that for sure.
Yeah.
Cool, man. We're wrapping up here, and thanks again for your time, dude. It's really interesting stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know if I've ever been able to like fully get into just art talk, so it's nice. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Just kind of wrapping up. Do you have any like, I don't know, final words or like piece of advice for somebody? You can take it however you want. It could be piece of advice for someone who wants to put their music out there and like pursue that a little bit more intentionally, or it could be visual art. Just like maybe somebody who doesn't feel like they're good enough or whatever to create something. I don't know. That's kind of where I was thinking after this conversation. Like that would be helpful advice.
Yeah. Well, I think my advice for someone like that would be advice that I'm currently trying to enact for myself. And it's basically just like, don't let anybody own you. Like, don't do anything to please anybody else. You know what I mean? Like, we all make a lot of fucking decisions that are meant to satisfy a situation or someone else in a situation, or like calm a situation down or do anything like that. And if we were just a little bit more forceful and spoke up for ourselves more, then we would be, ultimately, it might not make things easier, but we would probably end up a lot more free. So, like I find myself in a position now that I'm want to own way more of my life. I'm very disappointed that I have to let someone else sign a check so that I can survive. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't have any illusions that I'm like such a good musician or such a good artist or any of those things that like I could just fuck it, I just quit everything and do that, like lean into it, and my life will be livable. Because that's not it, and especially now that I've got a family, I can't do that. So part of it is if I had leaned into that idea a lot earlier for myself, I know that there were decisions that I didn't make that I should have, that would have freed me up a lot more to like have more control of my life and control of my time. I don't have to sell my time. So now it's essentially like do whatever you can in whatever incremental ways or drastic ways that you can do it without burning down your life. Don't let anybody else own your time. Like in the end, your freedom is all you got. You know what I mean? And and with our jobs, we're all just selling ourselves to survive. And none of us are taught that there are a lot of ways that if we lean into them, especially from a younger age, that we can have control like for ourselves, And so do whatever you can do to gain that control. And I'm going to do that too. That's why I'm trying to get over all of my bullshit, man. It's just so that I can lean into it. And I want control of my life. I want control of my time. I want to be able to be with my family when I want to be with my family. You know what I mean? Which is all the time.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things where it's just like nothing hurts more than saying goodbye to my family and then basically turning off to them for 10 hours a day. Like I just disappear as a person for 10 hours of a day of my daughter's life and of my wife. You know what I mean? Like it's just like, and then I just pop back in and be like, well, suddenly I'm a person in your life again. And I get that we all have to grind and do whatever it takes to take care of our family, which is what I'm doing, But I want control that allows me to be like, to do it on my terms. And if whoever's out there that has a chance to manage their life on their terms, fucking do it. Don't hesitate. Just do it. And it doesn't matter if you feel like you're good enough or not. The idea is that if you commit to it, you'll get better at it. And you'll have a lot more time to build that infrastructure around yourself. So like do what you can, especially if you're younger, to set yourself free so that by the time you're, at the level of responsibility of taking care of a family or doing anything like that, you get the final say of how you're going to deal with that part of your life.
Yeah. Well said. Appreciate that. And for everybody watching, of course, support Cult Leader, any music they release, any music you find on the shelves. The Cosmic Dread book we've been talking about, that's going to be released in about a month, so mid-September. Time of filming is mid-August, so actually we'll probably release this closer to that release date. And of course, follow Weeping Reaper on Instagram. Keep up to date with both Cult Leader, but then all the art stuff that he's been pursuing as well. But yeah, thank you again, everybody. Anthony, it's a pleasure, man. Really appreciate it. Stay behind just for a minute. See you guys next week.
Gotcha.
Bye.